What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? It's your boys over here at Three Man Weave. I'm your co-host CJ, here with my lovely co-host ZD on this Monday, December 29th night. It is 7:16. We're shooting this one a little later after a lot of these games have tipped off, but we're coming back at you again with another episode. How are you doing tonight, ZD, on this Monday evening?
Yeah, bro, I'm doing good, man. It's another day, but yeah, man, just the Christmas Day games were a blast, and it was tough seeing my Lakers lose, but it's all good. I think a lot of learning lessons and continuous paint touches are just killing me. But at the end of the day, I took an L in Dynasty too. I know we haven't talked about that in a little second, but I'm doing well, man. I think we had a quiet Christmas. We talked, I think Christmas Eve, right?
Christmas
I think it
Eve,
was
yep.
last week.
hmm
So yeah, that one hasn't dropped yet, but y'all will see it. So yeah, I'm feeling good, man. If you did fantasy football, maybe you're in the championship for that. So good luck to you. Maybe it's probably ending now. I think it's Monday, so it's probably over. But yeah, I got bounced pretty early this year, so I think now I'm all basketball, man. The playoffs are here. Texans are doing well.
hmm
Yeah, man, I can't complain. What about you, brother? How you feeling?
Feeling good, bro. Like you said, those Christmas days, we saw some bangers, was able to watch the Thunder play with my dad and uncle, and it was cool for me because they're the ones that really like put me on to basketball. So it's it's cool because like the roles have kind of reversed for me now, and I'm the one that's kind of like talking to them about who this player is and oh, what college did he go to, type of thing. So it's cool for me because like that's how I used to be when I was a little kid, just like curious, always asking questions like, oh, who did he used to play for? Where's he from? Like those type of
Yeah,
things. So it was cool for me, bro, being able to do that, and obviously. Thunder weren't able to get the win. Going against the Spurs again, it sucks. But I mean, what can I say,
wow.
bro? They got the best of us. They're 0-3 against them right now, and yeah, it just seems like they got our number right now, bro. I mean, what more can I say? I still got to see it in the playoffs in an atmosphere like that, so we'll see what that looks like. Just because your regular season record against a team doesn't mean you're gonna lose to them all the time. Obviously, it's a great marker to kind of see how y'all match up. But I think seeing that matchup when it really matters is going to be what I'm more worried about. Obviously, they got our number right now in the regular season. We only have 5 losses, and they gave us 3 of those already. So obviously, hats off to them. They always played us incredible. I think it's just the dynamics of the guards that they have. I remember us talking about if it's going to be a log jam. It looks like they're able to really do it perfectly and have the right people around Wemby to where all they have is guys that could get to the rim, create their own shots, and it's a recipe for success when you have a team like that that kind of plays good defense, is able to defend really. Everyone's able to defend players, and they're able to attack players off the dribble as well. So, shout out to the Spurs, bro. That sucks for me to say that because I can't stand them, and they're actually beating us. The one team that has done that this a lot this season. So, I mean, besides that, bro, the Nuggets versus Timberwolves game was incredible. I would say that was probably the game of the night just because of the atmosphere of it, being the late game. It didn't end till like 1 a.m. or something. So, we really were, up in the streets you watching that game, that was a classic, some might say, bro. Just seeing that and just
Yeah,
a lot of good basketball, bro. I think that was my main thing, just take away from Christmas Day, and just what team wasn't able to get the win like yours as well, ZD. But I think just the experience alone, like I tried not to have that ruin my day because usually it would, especially the circumstances and losing already to the Spurs, this and that. But I was like, you know what, man, let me just take that out of it. We still have a lot of good games on the docket, so let me just kind of enjoy it for what it is. And we were able to watch some good competitive basketball, bro. So that's all I can ask for as a basketball fan, and being able to recap those games with you. Just be able to see what you thought, and there's a couple of things I kind of want to talk about. Whenever we get to that point, just with the Christmas Day games and stuff. But it was great, bro. It was a cool experience for me. Like I said, like full circle moment of being a basketball fan, watching it with my dad and uncle, and now I'm kind of like the one that is keeping them like tapped in and like, oh, that's so and so. He went to, Georgetown or whatever, like just the random things, that like they were doing for me when I was younger. I'm kind of helping them out and kind of keep them on game. So keeping them on their toes and whatnot. So super dope,
Yeah,
bro.
bro.
Super, super exciting. And I appreciate moments like that because, like who would have thought like roles would have been reversed because they just kind of stopped watching basketball and I started watching it a little bit more within the last couple years. So shout out to the NBA, bro. Just brings us all together and we're able to do stuff like that with our family. Like it's one of those kind of like don't appreciate it for what it is. It's just kind of like, oh, we have something that we could just all watch and like bond over. So it's cool, bro. That's why I love sports so much. It just brings us all together, and especially like for family time and whatnot. Just you can lock into something and not like feel weird, I guess, if you don't really talk to your family like that. But it's cool, bro. It's a good time, and can't complain, man. Christmas was good.
Yeah,
Food was delicious.
right, bro.
Santa got me a backpack, so now I got a little gym bag. So we're good. Underwear, socks, like all the essentials and stuff. So it was good. Good time with the
Yeah,
fam, bro. Can't
that's
complain.
good, bro. Yeah, yeah, I was dolo all day, so I was just kicking and watching the games and chilling. My family is kind of spread out. They live in Cali, so I wasn't really around them. But
Mhm.
seeing LA, I think Donovan Mitchell started off hot. Him and Jalen Brunson went at it in the
Crazy.
morning. Was able to pick that up, and I mean, that game was great, bro. I think they blew like a 20. I think it was like the biggest comeback
Mm,
recent memory for the Knicks, but they blew like a 20-something point lead. Donovan Mitchell, I think, hit like a crazy three at the end of the game where he almost traveled, dunked on OG. But Jalen Brunson prevails, Tyler Kolek as well. I think the Knicks are finding something that can work really well for them. And then obviously, the next game was yours. And that game was, you know, it is what it is. I think the Spurs showed up and, we came, it has, I don't even think it's come out, but we've spoken highly of them. It's not like we didn't think this could happen. Wemby's on a minute restriction. They were able to control the paint. Like you said, the guards, Steph Castle, Harper, Fox, they were all able to touch the paint. And I really think it was the De'Aaron Fox game. I
mhm,
don't think he gets a ton of credit, but played really well in the NBA Cup. He showed up, and that was a big deal because they needed all of the buckets that he gave them. And they did really well on Shea.
mhm,
I think they were able to hold him to under 25. They just they play extremely well. And so shout out to Mitch Johnson. I'm not a Spurs fan. I'm not gonna hype him up too much. I'm a Lakers fan. Lakers and Thunder are like, rivalry. History is a crazy thing and those three franchises have a mix of history there. But
mhm,
yeah, bro. Spurs were able to get it done and kind of prove to those fans and other people around the league that they're contending for an NBA championship, man. They're not just here messing around. Like they're the real deal. Seeing the Lakers though, I'll get into it. I think we dropped what was it, 96 to 119. It was on Christmas Day. Amin Thompson had 26 in this game. Him and five other players were in double figures, bro. And I don't even think the Rockets ever trailed in this game. I think Kevin Durant had 25 as well, 9 assists. Şengün was cooking. Doncic scored 25. I think LeBron also added 18. Um, I don't know, bro. I think they jumped out. I remember I was sitting down because I've been by myself just watching basketball all day. First part of the game, 18-8 run, Rockets. JJ calls a timeout. The paint touches, bro. I've spoken about it a lot, but I think I counted 12 paint touches in the first 5 minutes of the game, which is, again, bro, it's like, yeah, Kevin Durant getting in the mid range and doing those little 10, 12-foot pull ups are like paint touches, right? But those are still really efficient shots. And he was able to get to his spots early. This was our 27th consecutive Christmas Day game, if I'm not mistaken. And I think 52nd consecutive, or not consecutive, but 52nd overall appearance total in the NBA. So we're always playing on Christmas Day. It's just something that we got to take more pride in. I don't know, bro. Luca and LeBron went 4 of 11 combined from deep. They have not been shooting the ball particularly well over the last 5, 6 games, really over the last 10 games. LeBron's had some spurts where he's hit a couple tray balls, and same with Luca, but Luca's had has performances where he's gone 2 of 12, 1 of 9. I think outside of that Clippers game where he ended up leaving early, he just really hasn't shot it that well. I think him and LeBron also combined for like 9 of the 16 Laker turnovers. So,
Mhm.
when you have the ball in your hands a lot, you're going to turn the ball over. I think the Rockets defense showed up in this game, even though it hasn't been the greatest over the last 5 games. I think they were able to get it done when it mattered most. And at the end of the day, bro, I think the effort. If you guys may have seen what JJ said after the game, because honestly, I turned it off in the third quarter. I think we were down by like 21 points, and I was kind of like, all right, I don't even think guys really want to be here. Sure enough, JJ gets on the podium. Is like, yeah, you know what? We didn't even show up today. I think the practice on Sunday we're gonna have to shoot around. It's gonna be really uncomfortable.
Mm.
Blah 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 blah. I don't know if you saw that
I
quote,
did, yeah.
but it kind of speaks to like the effort level, bro. Because I'm not gonna lie to you, like, it pissed me off. It ruined my day. Like I didn't see no family, no friends, no nothing. So like this was something I was really counting on, and for them to no show, like they basically no showed.
Mhm.
And I know it, Austin Reeves left early, another calf injury in this one. I saw him leave, and I was kind of like, oh, there goes our third guy. I think he had 12 points before the end of half, but he ended up leaving before halftime. But point is like when your effort starts to crumble, you got a main guy that's out, and you're also down 20 points the entire game to a team who's been top five in offensive rating pretty much the entire year, top five in overall net rating, probably another A tier contender like we'll talk about later. That's it's not a recipe for success. So JJ was clearly pissed off in this game, and Roy was scoreless. I didn't see any aggressiveness from him, and got killed on the glass, bro. Again, we know the Rockets are one of the better. I think they're the best offensive rebounding team in the league, hands down. But that means we got to get on the glass, bro. Especially on Christmas Day. We're at home. We're one of the worst home teams in the league, by the way. But we still got to show up, bro. And we just didn't even show up in this one, and hence to the score. Like I said, started off I saw it like 18-8 run off the jump, and I'm kind of like, we'll see how this one goes. Kind of like we were talking about on the preview that hasn't came out, but we talked about this, how the Rockets defense was going to be swarming. Reed
Mhm.
Shepard played great. Şengün played great. It was a really good game from the Rockets. I think Amen and Durant had 16 before the end of the first half. Like they were just getting to their spots and
Yeah.
killing us on the glass. So Steven Adams, I think him and Şengün combined for more than half of our total rebounds. So they're the best offensive rebounding team in the league. They got Kevin Durant, who's probably the second best mid range player in the league. You want to say Shea's first? I get it. Reed Shepard's come into his own and played extremely well. I think it's more about the Rockets than it is about the Lakers. The swan song with them is, we give up paint touches. We don't play great defense. We give up a lot of threes, and of course in this game we gave up a lot of rebounds. So
Mhm.
I think that's why you see the score the way that it is, and regardless of Luka and LeBron being there, it just wasn't enough. And
Yeah.
I think we dropped to like 25 and 27 on Christmas Day, by the way. So we actually have a losing record on Christmas Day. So pretty pretty interesting. But yeah, the next game, I think I think I didn't watch the. Did you watch the Dallas and Warriors game?
I didn't, bro. That was the
Yeah, I didn't
one.
watch that one either.
Mm-mm.
That was the one at 4:30, I think. So
Yeah.
I was kind of like in between that Thunder Spurs one. I was kind of like, let me take a break a little bit. So saw Cooper Flag did well. Steph Curry was hooping in that one, but
Mhm.
I don't know, bro. That night game, did you said you watched it?
Yeah, that was the one I was locked in with a lot. That Minnesota Nuggets game.
Yeah, how'd that one turn out?
Super good, bro. Like obviously, I think Nuggets were winning majority of the game. I think the Timberwolves ended up making a huge like fourth quarter comeback. And I think
Oh
it
yeah.
was it was really just Ant, bro. Ant started taking over. I think we've seen what that team can be whenever he is on one. And this was a game where he dropped 44, and mind you, he got ejected with like 30 seconds left in overtime, so that could have been a lot more points and could have potentially went to double overtime because they started off going on super good. So Anthony Edwards hits a turnaround three pointer, like fadeaway 3-pointer in the corner to take it to overtime. they end up going on like a 8-0 run in overtime to start it off, and then they still end up, falling short, and Ant gets ejected. But Ant was trying to be the Grinch who stole Christmas in Denver, bro, and it looked like he had the perfect scene to be able to do that. It's just Jokic, man. Jokic is incredible. We talked about it in the preview whenever we were talking about this matchup. He always cooks Rudy Gobert. I think he has like a little vendetta against him or something, bro. I think the last time on Christmas he played them, they had like a 40-point triple double, and now he had a 60-point triple double, whatever, 50, 55, whatever it was. You know what I mean? So
17 points in overtime, right?
it's
Or something crazy.
yeah, he had the most points in overtime. So it was a brewings of like honestly a instant classic. Like that was the type of vibes that it gave me, and seeing Jokic get that record for most points in a overtime for a player, the build up to get to overtime, and just everyone's playing. Julius Randle had a really good game. DiVincenzo wasn't doing the greatest, but he hit down a big 3-pointer to kind of bring the game closer for Ant to be able to, knock down that three and tie it up. But, Jamal Murray was incredible as well. I feel like that was
Yeah,
someone that's why I think it was a 44-point game from Ant and like a 30-point game from Julius Randle, of a 56-point game from Jokic, and I'm pretty sure it was like a 35-point game from Jamal Murray. So like a crazy duo, like tandems that we were seeing just go back and forth this whole game. So, we kind of talked about it, bro. The offense, if the Timberwolves were gonna be able to keep up with the Nuggets offense and how efficient it's been all season, like this was the brewings of a really good game, and you kind of saw it. So shout out to that, because that's really what made my night. I'm not gonna lie to you, like I was kind of in a mood because the Thunder had lost to the Spurs 3 times already, and this and that. I'm like, oh my gosh, I have not seen my team win basketball
Allie.
games in a very long time. So just a bad mood, and then that game kind of ended up sealing it for me and just like capped it off, because that's probably one of the greatest Christmas games I've ever got to witness, and I watched the whole thing from start to finish. So just being able to do that, I was chilling with that boy JG, so we got to experience that. And Jokic, man, what can I say? Just
There it is.
one of the greatest centers I've ever, one of the greatest centers ever, bro. Just one of the greatest players I've ever seen. So just gotta appreciate it for why he's here, bro. Because I don't think a lot of people really understand that.
Yeah, he's the greatest center I've ever seen, and now clearly the number one. I mean, he's the MVP favorite, and he deserves it. The record similar to the Thunder now, unfortunately for
Yep.
you guys, but that would Jokic is clearly
Oh,
the best player in the NBA. So that's cool. My team got a W yesterday though. I think it was the 28th yesterday, but we beat the
mhm,
Kings 125-101.
mhm,
Luca 34 had like 16, 18 points in the first half. LeBron was also on a heater. Marcus Smart was available, started for us in this one. Austin Reeves was out with that calf injury, but again, we beat the Kings 30-24 in the first quarter. We played well. We got out in transition. Marcus Smart had a nice little lob to LeBron, a little no look. Luca's hitting some triples. Something we didn't guard. Again, Russell Westbrook getting easy paint touches off the pick and roll. I think he had a quarter triple, and then Dennis Schroeder was also getting paint touches as well. I did want to shout out Maxime Reynard, who finished with 16 points. Reynard is like a Frenchman. He's kind of been under the radar a little bit because Sabonis has been hurt, whatever, King Murray, whatever. Dude, this guy can ball. I think when you put him in the right spots, he's got a nice face-up game, and I think he gave them a little bit of punch in their lineup. So I did want to shout him out. Malik Monk played extremely well too.
mhm.
I think we needed this pick-me-up game after the no-show versus the Rockets, bro. So like I said, we were able to start fast. We played a lot quicker, which was great. And then in the second quarter, man, we just gave it to him again. Nick Smith Jr., somebody who's going to get, honestly, a lot more flowers now that Austin Reeves is hurt. And I think out for, what is it, 4 weeks, if I'm
4
not
weeks,
mistaken.
yeah.
That's what Sean said. So
Mhm.
like a month. Nick Smith Jr., he's gonna be asked to step up, bro. And I think he had 21 points in this one. I think he only missed one shot in the first half, bro. I think he was like 5 of 6 or 6 for 6 in that first half, but came into the second quarter and immediately was our spark plug. Hit a couple threes. DeAndre Ayton looked great as well, really manning down the paint and doing his thing. I think this is where the game shifted. We were able to go on like a 12-2 run. We pushed the game out pretty far. I think when we play a team like this is where we can really assert our dominance. And I was like, this was a good game for the net rating, just
Mm-hmm.
because the Kings are so bad. And that's kind of what it is right now for them. I think they were looking for answers in this game, and they were able to touch the paint, but they just weren't able to knock down their shots. And that's kind of what you get
Mm-hmm.
in that case. I think after halftime, I think we beat the Kings in the third quarter, 31-27. So we were able to outscore them again in that third quarter. I think Roy and Hachimura, Roy and LeBron both knocked down 2 threes in that quarter. So they were able to kind of get it going. I think LBJ was cooking as well. It's like 9 to 10 in the first half. Getting it done on both sides of the ball. Had a couple steals as well. We sat him obviously because he's turning 41 tomorrow,
Yep.
actually. So, um, happy belated birthday, Bron. But
Nice.
yeah, we took him out. We were up 20 something. I was able to kind of change the channel and watch something else. But another great showing from us offensively. I think the reason why the score was so lopsided though was just because the Kings couldn't hit their shots. It wasn't because we were playing good defense. So don't be fooled by the box score. I think I still counted again. When I was counting, I counted like 8 paint touches in 3 minutes. Russell Westbrook 3 separate times. Malik Monk one. Malik Monk was hooping too. Malik Monk had a play I think in the third quarter where he hit a three. Nick Smith Jr. came down, hit a three, and Malik Monk hit another three. So they got guys who can score the ball well, and Laravia had a couple and ones. I think everybody just got their mojo back in this game, bro. So I think losing the previous 4 out of the last 6 kind of gave us a fire to light under our butts for a second, man. And I think JJ Redick did end up having an impactful practice, and I saw it on the court. We were able to play with a little bit more pace, and that's something that we've been lacking as well. I haven't spoken about that a lot, but the Lakers are one of the slower teams in the NBA. I didn't want to bring up a note that I had in this game, but we controlled the pace so well. I think Luka Doncic was able to force the issue, get to his spots, and then continue to draw and kick. I think Jared Vanderbilt even knocked down 1 or 2 corner threes, and he's starting to become a better 3-point shooter as well. That's keeping him on the floor for right now. And Dalton Connect checked in. So, yeah, I've been seeing some good things, man. I think the Lakers are heading towards the right direction. And with an injury to Austin Reeves, it begs the question, like now guys like Dalton Connect or a Thero or a Bronny James or a Nick Smith Jr., they're going to get opportunities to shine. And I think a game like this is perfect practice for them to, when we do play the Thunder or the Spurs or a team that's an A or S tier contender, like those guys can step up in a bench role. So I liked what I saw from us. And yeah, we were able to get the job done. I think Luka almost had 40 in this game. So
Mm-hmm.
him and Dennis Schroeder were talking mess at the end of the game before he got taken out. But yeah, just great basketball from Nick Smith Jr. soaking up all the garbage time minutes and utilizing that to his advantage, man. I think the Lakers shot 52% from the field in this game, so
Mm-hmm.
we were on fire, bro. So 1-1 in our last 2 games. I mean, the Christmas Day game pissed me off, but I think yesterday's game got me right. I know you guys won to beat the Sixers. It was
Yep.
in the third quarter. The Thunder, again, the Thunder are the best third quarter team in the NBA. They came out, kind of destroyed the Sixers in that third quarter, and it wasn't really a story from there. But I think it was competitive in the first half. But there's always a lot of good basketball on Sunday. So
Yeah.
if you can, I know the NFL it's the NFL's day, and I get it, but they have like early afternoon games, I think. So
Yeah, games
if you can
that
watch
like
those,
start
definitely
around like noon or like 11 or
noon,
yeah,
yeah, like noon to
one.
4.
Yeah, yeah. But no, like you said, bro, was able to get that win yesterday against the 76ers, bro. And I think just kind of like my takeaways from watching that, watching the recap of the game and just all the possessions and stuff, just seeing how dynamic Tyrese Maxey has been this season. I think he's definitely an all NBA player. Just what he was able to do against us, being one of the better, one of the best defenses in the league. He just kind of was able to get to the rim at will at certain points. And this was with multiple bodies at him. You know, Kason Wallace, Lou Dort, Alex Caruso. Like he was able to really get to his spots at any given moment. So wanted to shout him out. I feel like that was a player that we been talking about all season, seeing if he could keep up with it, and it looks like he's gonna be able to. Honestly,
Yeah.
barring him getting injured or anything like that, like if he could keep this up, and it looks like he's not really slowing down. So it's great to see that for the Sixers because he is their future at this point. Embiid didn't play this game, but he's kind of been in and out the lineup. PG had a decent game. I wanted to bring him up. Look like he's starting to get his jump shot back and just
Yeah.
he's not going to be the same player that we're expecting him to be in like the Clippers, but I think if he could just be a good plug and play guy, shoot threes well and defend at a decent level, I think that's something they need. Wanted to bring up Adem Bona. I feel like he didn't have a crazy game per se, but he was getting offensive boards and getting putbacks that were kind of changing, like shifting the momentum in that first half. Like you said, that first half was a lot closer than obviously what the end score was. And, I wanted to bring that up because I think that's a part of the game that, you see the box score, you see the final score of the game, and it's a
Yeah.
20-point lead. You don't really think about it. But first half, they were playing incredible. So I wanted to bring him up. And Justin Edwards was 3 for 3 from the 3-point line in the second quarter. So I think just momentum shifting things that any other game, if this was, we've been saying, being 1-1, or not being able to, finish off the Spurs and get a dub against them. I think that's kind of been in the air for us. Are we washed? Are we really that good of a team? We had an easy schedule. So a lot of chit chat has been going on for the Thunder. You know what I mean? I think this was a game where we were able to kind of show who we are, the type of team that we have been all season and have been for the past year and a half. Obviously, like, I gave the Spurs flowers. They're great. They defend us very well. It's just a matchup thing with them. I think, with the 76ers, like you were saying, bro, like what we were able to do in that third quarter is really what shifted the game, and it kind of made it to kind of like a blowout. I would say, but up to that point, it was incredible. Third quarter, just Shea being able to get to the rim, find open players. We were actually hitting down our threes. We still only shot 36%, but that's a lot better than what we have been shooting. Sub 30%, 25% at certain games. We just can't win a lot of games like that. But another thing I wanted to bring up, bro, I feel like our half court offense has looked like it's gotten a little more fluid. Obviously, I feel like that has a lot to do with us being able to knock down jumpers. But even when we haven't been, I think it's when you have the player of Shea's ability, he's able to create for himself in the mid range. There's times where I'm just like, bro, have Shea get to it. I know it may not kind of keep the offense in flow, like in a good you know, flow throughout the whole game. But there's certain aspects in the game where I'm just like, man, he needs him taking that contested mid ranger is a lot better than Lou Dort hitting this contested 3-point shot. You know what I mean? So it's the efficiency. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's something. Our offense was looking really good. We've been able to get a lot of backdoor lobs. And I think that's
Yeah.
something a lot of the teams have been kind of, Shea drives the ball into the paint. All eyes are on him. Hart and Sign or Holmgren are able to kind of get behind them and get an easy lob. And I think we've been able to capitalize on that a lot. So shout out to that. And it just, like I said, this was one of those games where, our bench hadn't been the greatest going into Spurs. I think we were down AJ Mitchell as well. And I feel like that's who's really been our most productive like playmaker off of the bench and able to get his own bucket. So having him come back this game, I think we kind of saw the type of player that he has been for us. And him being out of the lineup, I don't want to say that is the reason why we lost, but that's a huge factor because in those moments when Shea can't really get it going, we have AJ Mitchell that can kind of, create his own shot at moments in the game. So him coming back, Wiggs being able to knock down threes, and I think he ended up scoring 15, 6 or 8 from the field. Stuff like that.
Mhm.
Our bench performed how it has been all season. It's just upsetting because we weren't able to do it against the Spurs, and that's a huge reason why we are such a good team because we rely so much on our depth to be able to score 10, 15 points per person, depending on who it is, anybody could get that type of thing. So fact that we hadn't been able to do it against the Spurs, I think it just kind of goes to show the type of defense and the type of culture that they're setting there. I think they are in the same boat as like, oh, a next man up, but you also have to be able to defend any player that is on the court as well. And I think it's a good
Exactly.
mentality, you know what I mean? So shout out to them, like I said once again. But this bench unit looked very good in that fourth quarter to seal off the game. I wanted to bring that up because I feel like I said, it was something with the way that we have been playing against the Spurs, just getting really give them opportunities too, because we were down by so much in a lot of those games. But just seeing that bench unit look fluid and being able to generate offense without having any of the starters out there is always good to see. So shout out to that. And this was actually our 23rd consecutive win against the Eastern Conference, and we are 5-0 this year. So undefeated against the Eastern Conference. We've been able to, hold our own against that. It's just, the West. And I think that's something, we've been saying, but holding it down against the East. And, my team is 1-1 over the last 2 games, bro. That haven't been able to say that a lot, been on a little losing streak. So able to get this dub, and I think kind of just, not brush all the remarks out of the way, because I feel like it's something that we're gonna think about even later on in the season. But I think this is, like you said, a good pick me up type of game. Like I think
Yeah,
we kind of remembering the team we are, and I don't think a lot of people. I brought it up on the last pod. Just it's what you have done for us in the moment, not really what you have already done for us. And the Thunder team have proven to, I feel like the audience, the fans of this league, that we are still the best team in the league. It's just we happen to struggle against a team that's on the come up. So I think that's something that don't forget. You know what I mean? I feel like a lot of these other teams we've been able to prove ourselves. So I don't want people to like not
right.
forget who the Thunder are. I think that's something. The rumblings are there. I get it, but we're still able to do stuff like this against every other team. It seems like so.
Yeah, and to put a bow on it, I think the Spurs lost in Utah.
Hmm.
Wemby no showed at the podium, bro.
It's crazy.
Like I think no shade to him or whatever, but Shay's there, win or loss. He's talking about being a leader and showing up, but like you can't just dip whenever because y'all beat the Thunder, you can't lose to the Jazz, right? So the NBA's up and down, man. It's not as pretty as you might think, and kind of like you just said, it's more of a "what have you done for me lately" type of league. So I
Hmm.
love that, and
Yeah.
for people who didn't catch that, but yeah, dog, I love the way that the Sixers have been playing too. I think you spoke about VJ and his growth, and Paul George. You gave him his flowers as well. Obviously, previous Thunder man too.
Hmm.
But yeah, seeing the Thunder rally in the third quarter, and Chet popping off, having a great game, and
Yeah.
I think J Dub still trying to find his footing, but
Yeah.
I don't think he'll ever. His career arc is interesting because I don't think he'll ever need to be like a Luca or a Shea or none of that. So
Hmm. I
I think
think
he's been.
he is in like I wouldn't say like the greatest position, but in a really good spot to where if he could just be one of the best second options, I feel like that will solidify him. You know what I mean? He's already, I know you saw that comment of him saying like, "Oh, are you nervous for the moment?" And he was like, "Brother, I scored
What?
40 in the finals." Yeah, like I get it. I get it what he was saying, but it's just one of those like that is the moment, like I understood what he was
Yeah,
saying. Like the finals
yeah,
is what
like
you're trying to get to every single season, and he was able to perform. So I think it's just how he went about it. But certain stuff like that, you know what I mean? Like the fact that he's already done that, if he could just be doing what he's been doing just on a consistent basis, like more efficient, I think it'll look a lot better, and then just kind of be the lockdown defender for us that can score or be
yeah,
good in your moments.
yeah, like you said, like the second option thing for him is really important, and I think what he meant in that answer is like I think we'll play a lot more Christmas Day games, and they may be even against the Spurs again. The NBA is very specific about who they kind of match up with each other, and they have their reasons. But yeah, I think that's more of, I don't know if it came off as maybe disrespectful or whatever, but yeah, he had 40 points in a finals game. I think his wrist is still hurt, and Stephon Castle and those guys or whatever. And yeah, like I'm kind of, I like talking about the Spurs, but I'm also like I don't know, I'm not ready to buy into it. But
Yeah.
the entire NBA world is. So, if you hear this on Three Man, like I'm not sold. They still got to do it in the playoffs, and we'll see when that time comes. But for now,
Mhm.
obviously getting all the way to the NBA Cup final, and beating the best team of the last decade, in my opinion, three straight times. It's got to be worth something.
Right.
So let's go into contender pretender though. We'll end out with the tanking stuff. I know you guys want us to talk about that. We'll leave that for the last thing, but we'll go into the storylines of the week. We're gonna do this one before All-Star break. We'll do one after. Okay, we're only gonna do it twice a year, so don't ask us to do it a million times because it gets repetitive. But I think, well, speaking of All Star, I think did you see the voting came out?
Yes, I saw that. I saw
Okay, well,
Shaw.
we'll go through that too for y'all
Yeah,
at
yeah.
the end. But yeah, no, the way we gonna do it, I think there's 5 tiers. S tier, you guys know what S tier is. S tier is like cream of the crop. A tier, pretty close to cream of the crop, guys that we think could potentially go and compete for Larry O'Brien. B tier, which is the scrappers, guys who could make it on a blue moon and have shown promise to do so. C tier, it's the playing tier. It is the tier of, can you make it to the B or A tier before we talk about you? And then the F tier is the F tier. I mean, that's what the dumpster tier in the NBA. And so we'll go through them real quick, man, and we'll start off with F, and yeah, CJ, we can just alternate. So I think, what is it? You'll do C and
C
A,
A bet.
and then me and you can mess around with the S tier. But starting it off with the worst tier, man. This is the F tier as of right now. We got the Los Angeles Clippers, and I was gonna ask you, brother, can you pull up the standings for us so we can
Yeah.
see their records and stuff?
Mm-hmm.
Los Angeles Clippers, I think they're on a little win streak right now. I think it's 4 games, so they've crept up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not exactly sure where they
Yeah.
sit in the West
They
specifically.
they are 13th. 13th in the West right now.
Okay, cool. I was gonna say we'll also give one reason as to why they're in that tier for me and for CJ. The reason they're in the tier for me is because they've completely, I don't want to say like just not even showed up, because they're starting to show up a little bit, but I think expectations were here
Mm-hmm.
and they met them way below that. So I think for what we were expecting the Clippers to be just as a media whole, I gotta put them in this tier, man. They were horrible. Their net rating says they're horrible. They can't guard. They sent CP3 home. I just don't like the concoction that I've seen recently from them. Outside of these last 4 games, if they can, we talked about it, stay healthy. That's
Mm-hmm.
really they're also an old roster. I think it'll be really tough for them to make it out of the play-in, even if they are able to make a play-in spot. So I think for me, that's why they're in the F tier.
Yeah. No, yeah, I agree, bro. I think just the expectations that were set for them. Obviously, you get CP3. We didn't know he was gonna get cut from the team. Bradley Bill, we didn't expect him to get a season-ending injury. So a lot of these things are injury based, but just also the roster that is constructed. We expected you to be a play-in team at least, and now you're kind of fighting to get to that play-in spot. And this is with a 4 game win streak. So I think just based off of your performance alone, I think it kind of speaks for itself. I mean, y'all are 10-21 and are on a 4 game win streak. So you were 6-21 at a certain point, and the Thunder have that first round pick. So don't forget about that.
Oh, I did.
But
Yeah, I was
I
gonna
th-
say,
I think
man.
I think
Yeah,
for them it's just the expectations that were set, and y'all aren't in a situation where you get your pick if you do bad. So it's like you're a lose
exactly.
lose. So you have to at least have a little bit of pride to where you're like, all right, let's try to win some games so the Thunder don't get a top 5 pick.
Yeah, bro. Next squad in this one, I agree with you, brother. Next squad is the Hornets. The Hornets are 11-20. I think they are 13th in the East, if I'm not mistaken. Man, outside of Concanupple, it's been dark, to be honest. LaMelo Ball, Brandon Miller's barely played. LaMelo Ball, when he does play, they say, he's not the efficiency has been way down. It says it in the numbers. I think he's shooting sub 40% this year, which is the lowest of his career since his rookie season, I think. Um, it, I think they have some bright spots. Kalkbrenner, Knuppel, obviously, Miller, and Ball. They've all been bright at times, and I think they have the potential to be a play-in team. But the reason they're given an F right now is because, again, expectation versus reality. I think they should have 15 games won.
Mm.
They've only won 11 games, and it's because they've lost to a couple cupcakes. And I think it's an effort and discipline thing. And their defense has also been piss poor. So I'm putting them in the F tier because their defense needs to clean it up before I take them seriously. And I think all of us in the media need to see that first before we take the Hornets seriously because it's not their offense.
No.
I'll say that.
No, yeah, it has never been their offense that we've been worried about. It's just been their defense. But I feel like it's even more to that is just their health, bro. Like I feel like that's always something we talk about with the Hornets, and we're gonna talk about another team that kind of is in the same category. But it's just you can't stay healthy. You have drafted pretty well for the most part, so you have Concanupple. You have this draft for you in particular is probably one of the better teams drafting wise. It seems like you all have pretty good NBA players on that roster right now, but it's just if they could stay all healthy together, and when they are healthy, are they going to be able to play good defense? And I think that is the question for them. Just the consistency as well. You have moments where you're able to score 140 on a team, and there's other moments where you're barely cracking 110. So it's kind of hard to really see what type of roster you are when you just aren't healthy, right? But I think we see the talent that y'all have, and it can translate at certain moments. It's just can it be consistently throughout a whole season? And like you said, it's something that we have yet to see for them. So by default, I have to put them in this category as well.
Yeah, fair enough. I think, just you got to go with it. But next team on our list, Milwaukee Bucks. And what's weird about the Bucks? They're 14-19. I think I teetered on putting them in the C category. The reason I put them in the F category, they're Giannis injury away from being probably one of the worst teams in the East.
Mm-hmm.
I think Giannis has single-handedly got them probably 6-7 wins on the season just because he was playing. But when he was out, man, the Bucks, they slowed down. They were playing a little bit better basketball earlier in the year, and now they've teetered off. And I think they received the F because their roster construction isn't great. And I think they expect so much out of Ryan Rollins and Kevin Porter Jr. And if they don't get 20 points from those guys, then they're not really competing.
Mm-hmm.
Those guys are like good role, depth pieces on a championship team. They're not supposed to be number one, number two, number three options. And so I think the Bucks ultimately have constructed their roster poorly and probably should have traded Giannis 2 years ago. But now they're stuck with the Miles Turner, Giannis, Bobby Porter front court, and then, the KPJ, Ryan Rollins backcourt, trying to figure that out, adding AJ Green in the mix every once in a while. I don't know, man. They're not in the plan in the East. So I think that was my last statement too, is I think there's it's 7, 8, 9, 10.
Yeah.
And they're 11 right now.
Yeah, I was about to say they are without Giannis, this team is obviously not even in the conversation to compete, but obviously they have Giannis. But I think that aside, even with the roster that is around Giannis, I don't think it's good enough to be able to compete and really try to get even close to Eastern Conference Finals. You know what I mean? So I think that kind of says it alone. Wish they would have been able to, trade Giannis and get something for him. Obviously, he's coming back from that injury. He's on a minutes restriction still, so we'll see. I mean, that's more than likely going to happen. It's just what are you going to be able to get for him at this point? So weird situation for them. But yeah, I agree. F tier for sure for the Bucks.
Moving on to our next squad, Brooklyn Nets. Brooklyn's playing really good basketball right now, but they're only 10-19. Started off the season horrible. One of the worst defensive teams in the league to now being the best defensive team in the league over the last 5 games. But that's the caveat. Just recently, I think Brooklyn was winless for the first 2 weeks of the season. So it's tough to get out of that woodwork. I think they have the potential to make a play-in spot. I think they're 12th in the Eastern Conference right now. But they're in the F tier for me because of their first round pick madness situation where they had 5 first round picks. They're still trying to figure out how to play all those guys. I think MPJ has been their best player. Clearly, he's given them a lot of room, but I think they don't know what to do with Cam Thomas. Egor Janum is an interesting piece. I think they're putting the puzzle pieces together, but they clearly haven't figured it out yet. And it's in their best interest to be bad. So if they wanted, they could potentially creep into the C tier if we're being generous, but I just don't see it. They're playing for the lottery, and the first 2 weeks of the season is more so who I believe the Nets to be than the last week or so or the last 10 games.
Yeah, yeah. Just I brought it up earlier with them having being so bad this season, and kind of you just want to have a portion of the season to look forward to. And I think this is that time for them, obviously being the best defensive rating team, for the last 5 games. But we know this roster, we know that it's not the greatest. MPJ can carry you to wins, as we've seen, but how consistent is that going to be? And like you said, it's probably in their best interest to be bad so they could get better players to surround MPJ with. But it's interesting seeing the growth from him, going to a team and being the guy. So the fact that he can do it, it's just can he can't lead you to NBA championship by himself. So I think that's sign in the right direction for the Nets. But yeah, gotta be on the F tier as well, just because of the roster that they have. And they have got a lot of good young players, but we don't really haven't seen them perform at a high level consistently. So you can't really
Exactly.
base it off of a lot. But
Yeah, you can't base it off of like a week of great games,
right,
So that's okay. But next squad, the Washington Wizards. The Wizards are 7-24, I believe, one of the few teams that has yet to crack 10 wins. And there you go. That's why they're in the F tier. They've yet to crack 10 wins. I think we've played 31, 32 games,
yeah,
so hey, they're the end of every single offseason file. We'll always talk about them last. There's Wizards fans that listen to us. We're not hating or nothing. I think SARS popped up. I think, I know you were expecting more out of Cam Whitmore and
hmm
Koulibaly. Haven't gotten it really, but I think Kaishan George stepping up and being awesome is probably Trey Johnson as well as probably like silenced those haters anyway. So y'all just got to look forward to the draft pick, man. You don't need to be contending. I think the 7-24 record speaks to that. They're just also horrible on offense. They can't. Their offense seems to be stuck in mud at times. They can't hit threes. I would say they have more defensive upside than offensive upside in this moment. But yeah, being 7-24, not having 10 wins potentially before the All-Star break is a big deal. I think it kind of speaks to where your team is at. And for the Wizards fans who do listen to us, we appreciate you guys, and hopefully you guys can turn it around. I know it's been years of darkness since really Russ was there going to the playoffs and, John Wall and Beal, but hopefully you guys can get back to those winning ways.
yeah, no, yeah, it's I think it because they were the last team before we started watching the NBA season. I'd had like low key high hopes for them. I'm not gonna lie. Maybe it was just me being optimistic and just kind of hoping for the best for them, just because I want to see the Wizards be good. I feel like haven't like you said we haven't seen that since Russ was there. So and then like you said even before then John Wall Bradley Bill duo. So it's been a
Right.
long time, bro, and just wanted to see another young team compete. Obviously, we haven't seen that. We've seen bright spots, like you said, Alex Sarr, Trey Johnson. We've been able to see, glimpses of what can be, but it's hard to. You haven't won 10 games, and like you said, we're 30 games into the season, so you're not a good team. You've had moments though, so I think that's a good thing to look forward to, but as long as you're competing in the games, and I know I don't watch a lot of Wizard games, but the times that I have seen it does the game is within reach, and then it just kind of
Yeah.
it is until it isn't type of vibe, and I think that's they just end up effort thing, and I think it's more than just them not being good. You know what I mean? I think it's a further case than just that. It's more of like a culture thing and bringing in someone
Culture.
to really change the environment for them. I think that'll go a long way. But they're talented. They have good players on that roster. But yeah, F tier, bro. It sucks, but Washington Wizards.
Sure. It does. Next squad on our list, the Dallas Mavericks. Unfortunately, they're 12-21. I think they are 12th in the West and just out of the plan. But yeah, the reason they're on this list, the Nico Harrison, Luka Doncic trade debacle. I mean, it's carried over into the season, and luckily they have Cooper Flag. But man, if they didn't, my gosh, I mean, without this man, the Mavericks would probably be second to last in the West. I think Cooper Flag has single-handedly won them some games.
Mhm.
Anthony Davis hasn't played, even 20 games this season. It's just a matter of health, current roster construction. And to be honest with you, the reality of it is they've also only won 12 games. It's only four more, five more than the Wizards, right? So
Yeah.
it's not like they're blowing anybody's socks off. I think they had a period 2 weeks ago where they were hooping and those pods have dropped. But yeah, like they have the potential, but they are more than
Far.
a Kyrie
Yeah.
Irving and Anthony Davis away from figuring that out.
Yeah, no, I agree.
You
I
know,
think when healthy and when each player is to like their best ability, we've kind of seen what that is be like can be, but obviously that was with Luca. So I think that's something else. It's like y'all's roster is constructed for a certain type of player that isn't on the team anymore. So I think that's something where they're having to rebuild. And obviously, like you said, Cooper Flag's been incredible over the past couple weeks. So that is why their record is better than what it is supposed to
yeah,
be, I guess. But like you said, it's only 12 games, so it's not like that much of a significance, and you kind of still have to be in that level where you're not in the C tier. You're more so leaning towards the bottom of the league right now, and it kind of makes sense. I mean, y'all had the number one pick, and you don't have your two best players consistently in the lineup. So it kind of makes sense. We've seen glimpses of what Cooper Flag could be, though. So I think that's what they're looking for, and that's what's keeping the Mavs fans happy at this point. So
Hunter.
shout out to
Uh,
Dallas.
Shout out to Dallas, yes sir. Going on to our next team, man, the Bayou, New Orleans. They are 8-25, man. They are 15th in the West. Again, reason they're on the list in the F tier is because they don't have 10 wins. We've seen New Orleans go winless for multiple weeks. Fired Willie Green, Derek Queen has stepped up and been awesome. Jeremiah Fears has been awesome. It's at this point, the Pelicans have so much hope with their rookies. I don't think they need to be a competitive team. This year, that's the caveat. They don't have their pick. And, they got Derek Queen in that trade. So that's the one thing where they are playing for something specifically for this year. But I think next 5 years in that wide timeline, they'll be fine. They've shown that they can compete. And when I do watch Pelicans basketball, it's been a lot better. Trey Murphy looks good. Sadiq Bey looks really good. But yeah, you're on the list, man.
Zion,
If you have
whenever he
any
plays, he looks good.
Zion, yeah, Zion's been awesome
hmm
when he does play.
Yeah,
But to not even have 10 games won at this point in the season, I think it speaks to the uphill battle James Borrego has to climb. And
yeah,
that's okay. The Pelicans aren't a good team, and that's okay.
yeah. It's my thing is like you said, their rookies are looking good. Derek Queen's looking like it was a hit. Is it worth that first round pick? I guess we'll have to see. But Jeremiah Fierce has been looking good as well. I think that's like you said, it's something they can look forward to. But the fact that they don't have that pick this year is such a damper on their season because it puts them in a situation where they have to win. Because if not,
This
then
year, yeah,
what was the as a not even a fan of the team, but as a fan of basketball, it's like what did you
what's
expect
the point?
to happen? Like, did you expect to be able to make a playoffs with rookies or that are, what I mean, gonna change the team? But it's kind of interesting because they haven't looked the best, but the rookies look good enough to where it's like, okay, I see what they're trying to cook up. It's just like you said, it's not a next year thing. It's the next 5 years that we're really going to be able to see what they develop into, and I guess we'll just have to see if that first round pick is going to be worth it. But as of right now, it's not because it's going to probably be a top 3 pick at this point, and this draft is really good, so it's gonna suck for the Pels, but we'll see. We'll see what that looks like, at the end of the season. But
Yeah.
Not
And them
looking the
Hawks
great.
swooping in. The Hawks don't get lucky. That's another they made a play with that pick. But moving on, man, the Kings, next squad on the list. Oh, they too, man. They're also 8-24, 14th in the Western Conference. Just a disaster, a dumpster fire. I think they got the bare bones of the old Chicago Bulls roster, signed Keegan Murray to a $200 million deal or something like that, and it's a bonus. Murray's hurt. Fox, Halliburton gone. It's just a disaster. Sacramento. I love Sacktown, bro. I'm from there. I want to cheer them on, but the front office there is horrible. I feel bad for Sacramento fans, honestly, more than Wizards fans, like because that was like Sacramento was a playoff team,
Hmm.
and now they're at the bottom of the barrel. And last year they were a playing team. I don't even think this year they'll make the play-in. Luckily, they have done a good job of keeping their picks. They have their pick. They're not in danger of anything like that. But I think it does benefit them to be worse than better this year because they've already. I mean, they're 8-24 again. They don't even have 10 wins. So
Terrible. Terrible, bro.
terrible.
I mean, there's not much you
Yeah,
can say, bro. I feel like they've always been in like that purgatory over these past, really since the play-in started, because they are one of those teams that are always competing for a play-in spot, but even if they make the playoffs, they're probably not going to really compete. So it's kind of like you're bad, but you're not bad enough to get a top pick, and you're not good enough to compete in the playoffs, but you can make the playoffs. So it's like that weird in between of not really knowing what direction you're going in. So you're always going to get a pick that's either a little outside of the lottery, or it's right before it's out of the lottery.
yeah,
So you
exactly,
can't
exactly.
unless you draft incredible, and like obviously the Kings have done a decent job, but they don't keep their picks, or they don't keep their players after they draft them.
Yeah,
So it's kind of hard to
they keep
really base their track record off of that. But yeah, no, it sucks, bro. Kings, from where they were at 3-4 years ago to where they're at now, that's night and day. And I think it's something where it's probably gonna be like that for a little while before they can kind of rebuild and figure out what direction they want to go in. But as of right now, yeah, not even 10 wins up to this point of the year. It's you got to be one of the worst teams in the league.
Yes, sir. And then last but not least, to round out the F tier, the Pacers. S- we'll make it quick. Worst team in the league. So
100%. Yeah. 6
six
and
and 26,
26.
30th, dead last. So I mean, it's not an indictment on like their organization. Actually, it's probably out of all the teams in that tier, probably the best organization, like in terms of front office, staff, like
Yeah.
they're probably the best out of that entire list, and they're the worst team in the NBA. And it just goes to show you how funny the
How
NBA is.
yeah,
Right?
how quick
We don't
everything
even
can
talk
change
about
in a
it.
year.
Yeah,
But
yeah. I think Nemhard and Siakam have been awesome. Matherin too at times, and the one bright spot I've seen like truly was that game against the Thunder. They took it like they had nobody out there,
and they
They're
took
taking them to over,
double
yeah, and they
overtime,
played well. So that was probably their best game of the year, seriously, still.
and that
And
was their first game of the season.
yeah, first, yeah, game of the year. So yeah, it's been tough, but I see the fight. So Pacers fans don't give up. But yeah, guys, it's not going to be good. But you guys got the pick, so you'll be fine.
Yeah, they got their pick. With this draft, they can really get a player to
To
change their whole
change,
trajectory,
yeah,
and I think that's it sucks to say it, but like that's like kind of the a picture perfect season for them. You know what I mean? Lose Tyrese for a season, but you end up getting a really good
right.
pick in this really good draft, and he comes back, and it kind of
Yeah, bro. And we'll
goes
talk
perfect.
about the tanking thing too. Like we'll talk about that a little later. But the NBA is exploring some ways to potentially curb that. So you got to lose while you can, basically.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Going into the C tier, these teams are a little bit better. Obviously, C tier meaning they're probably, not terrible, not the worst team in the league, but not, you know, competing. I guess they're kind of in the middle
Yeah,
of the pack. They can kind of go either way. So first team in this tier is Philadelphia 76ers. Obviously, my team just went against them yesterday. They're 16 and 14, which has them at sixth place right now in the Eastern Conference. And I feel like with them, it's
Health.
it's health.
Yeah.
It's really the rise of Tyrese Maxey, and I feel like VJ kind of you know being one of the more surprising rookies, I feel like, for a lot of people. I don't know what a lot of people thought, how good he was going to be, but I guarantee they probably didn't expect him to score, what was it, 34, his season debut at the beginning of the year. And just Tyrese Maxey, bro, I feel like, with him, it's just been, I talked about it earlier, and we brought it up a couple times when we talk about the 76ers. Can he be able to do this all season? And up to this point, he has been able to. So I feel like that has been really the main thing keeping them in
That's
these
true.
games. Uh
That's true.
76ers, obviously, when fully healthy, would probably be a lot higher in our list, but since they have not been, Embiid has been in and out the lineup. PG, like I was saying when we preview or recap the game earlier, starting to kind of get his flow back. But it's really their young guys, bro. The Adem Bona, Tyrese Maxey, uh, Justin Edwards. You're getting these guys that are on two-way contracts being able to step up. And I feel like that's really why they have been so good. Obviously, when you have Joel Embiid on this roster, it looks a lot different, and they are a dangerous team to go against. But Tyrese Maxey is kind of showing us how he can be the answer to some of their questions whenever Embiid ends up leaving. So, middle of the pack team really is so successful because of their star player and Tyrese Maxey, what he's been able to do this year, all NBA type player. But as a whole roster, it's kind of hard to really say that they are, an S tier or even a B tier, just off of the
Yeah.
lineup alone. It's kind of hard to put them in that rating, but a really good team
Yeah.
nonetheless.
For sure. And I try to put it like I think the Sixers are the first one out of the B tier.
Hmm.
So for you guys who are Sixers fans, it's the way I was thinking about it and probably the way CJ was thinking about it. But yeah, like VJ has been awesome. Tyrese has kept up with it. And the only reason they're in the C tier for me is health. You touched on it. So
Hmm.
I think Embiid being in and out of the lineup hurts them, but they found some good depth pieces. But Oubre's injuries hurt them.
Hmm.
And guys just get hurt for the Sixers, and it's tough because it hurts their playoff upside. And you guys will see SA like the teams in those SA and B tiers are better than them. So
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, going into the next team, kind of the same type of situation. We have the Cleveland Cavaliers in this tier as well. They're 17 and 16. That has them eighth in the Eastern Conference. It's honestly, it's literally the same thing for how I feel about the 76ers and the Cavs. Like, Donovan Mitchell has been incredible, all NBA type season. He's been backpacking the Cavs all season long.
oh dude,
Evan Mobley has been in and out the lineup, kind of like how Joel Embiid has been as well. But the consistent thing with them is Donovan Mitchell, and I think that has been their greatest thing to happen to them this season. You
yeah,
know what I mean?
saving
Kind of,
grace,
kind of, yeah, kind of seeing what he has been doing since he's been to Cleveland and what he's able to do on a night to
right?
night basis, but he can only do so much. And I think that's, why ZD and I put them in this tier because of just how they haven't been healthy this whole season. And I mean, I'm gonna be honest, it even when they were healthy last season, when it come playoff time, they weren't healthy. So it's kind of just been a thing for the Cavs where it sucks. We talked about their books and what that looks like. They're in the luxury tax. It's kind of hard for them to really do a lot, but their health has been the main issue. Donovan Mitchell has been fantastic. Jared Allen, their bigs have been in and out the lineup, and Darius Garland isn't, not playing the greatest. Even when he does play, I mean, we've seen flashes. We know what
Yeah,
that duo can be, but it's just, are they going to be able to play? Are they going to be able to play on a night to night basis? And I think that's the main thing with them. So kind of repeating what the 76ers were to me, that's kind of why the Cavs are in this level. If they health wasn't the issue, if they were all healthy, they'd be a lot higher. Obviously, I mean that's a lot of people's best team in the East. Some might say, you know what I mean. But as of right now, it's not looking like it. So.
Yeah, bro, and the expectation coming into the season, right? Like we thought they were going to be an A tier team, probably.
Hmm.
Yeah, they're not that,
Nope.
and injuries are a part of the game, man. We're just ranking the teams where they are.
Hmm.
That's the beauty of this exercise. Yeah, we're going through all 30 teams again. We had an episode that dropped where we went through all 30, but like just hearing the truth on
Yeah.
your team is important. And I think the Cavaliers, like you said, Donovan Mitchell's played extremely well, but Darius Garland's been in and out of the lineup. Everybody's been hurt. Strus has been hurt. And they got Sam Merrill back recently. Lonzo Ball's been decent for them.
Hmm.
They have the guys to put together a decent, season. It's just, can they do so? I think Kenny Atkinson's a great coach, and I think they can turn it around.
Hmm.
But yeah, seeing them lose on Christmas Day in that way, I was
It's
like,
very
damn,
shocking. Yeah, they
they
should have
needed
won that
that
game.
win, bro. They needed that. They needed that. That would have been big for momentum and just yeah, the momentum for the year,
Hmm.
and they weren't able to get it done. So yeah, I will put them in the C tier, man. That's an honest rating.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Going into this next one, man, we got the Golden State Warriors, who are also in the C tier. They're at 16 and 16. That ranks them eighth in the West right now. Um, it's been the same thing with the Warriors, bro. I feel like, when they're at home, when their role players are able to, get behind the crowd and, you're gonna get a game from Steph Curry, it's easy to build off momentum from that. But when they're on the road, when their bench players aren't gonna shoot as well, they don't have a lot of depth on this roster. Jonathan Kuminga isn't getting the opportunities to, show the type of player that he is for them.
Yeah,
Pods has been doing okay. Like Buddy Hield, inconsistent. Like the roster that the Warriors have constructed, it has not really changed since their championship team in 22. You know what I'm saying? And they just expect to be able to roll out here with Steph Curry and be able to take them to the promised land year in and year out. I think it's obviously Jimmy Butler in addition, but he's not the same Jimmy that we know and what we've
nah,
seen. You know what I mean? He has his moments. I mean, beginning of the season we saw him get to the line 20 times and these things, but it's not the type of aggression that he's playing with. And I think with the Warriors being one of the older teams, not the greatest on the defensive side of the ball anymore. Offense is decent. I mean, you have Steph Curry, so it is what it is. But just middle of the pack team, obviously 500 for the season. We've seen spurts where you know Curry puts up 40 points against the Spurs, which is looking like a crazy games now, the way that they're looking now. But and then he has moments where he's able to do his thing, but he's the only player to get it going. I think with them, it's the depth, and it's also just who's going to be the next guy for them whenever Curry comes along. And I think as of right now, they don't have that answer. And we've seen kind of what this team looks like when Steph Curry's injured. It doesn't look good. And I think their expectations for the young guys to take leaps hasn't came to fruition yet. So it's kind of when is that going to be a thing? So middle of the pack team. I mean, they can't get literally any more mid of a team. You know what I mean? C and you're 16 and 16. It's
500
five.
basketball is the
Yep.
Warriors' real name, and Steve Kerr said it, man. They're a fallen dynasty, and they're just trying to figure their way out. And at this point in the season, Steph Curry, if he misses a game, kind of the sky is falling. And yeah, they're an older roster. Horford, Sciatica, like I don't really know the point of that signing. And yeah, Dunleavy has a lot of work to do. I think this is a testament of where the Warriors actually are. I mean, the dynasty that they've built, strength in numbers, all of that, like that's starting to slowly fade away, and they're going to have to make decisions, on the margins, trying to figure out, can we move Kaminga? Can we play for a draft pick? I don't know if it's in the Warriors' best interest to be trying to contend either. So they're an interesting team. I think you said it perfectly. It's a perfect spot for them.
Mhm.
500 basketball after the course of 32 games, and Steph Curry looks good when he's out there, and when he doesn't play well, there's just not a lot of other answers that they can go to.
Mhm.
Guys who can be consistent. In fact, they signed his brother because they needed somebody to come in and hit threes, right? So it's yeah, the Warriors are interesting case study as of right now, bro. But yeah, I'd have to agree. I like this spot for them, and I think it shows in their record and their net rating. I think They're like 15th in net rating too, so they're like mid.
Yeah, yeah. They bet literally they've been 500 basketball all year. So
Right.
we've seen them be great. We've seen them get blown out. It's kind of hard to really. I mean, we know what this team is. I feel like it hasn't been any different,
Yeah.
but it's the grace of Steph Curry's greatness where it's like, okay, they still have a chance regardless. I think that's how great of a player
Yeah.
he is. But going into this next team, man, also in the Western Conference, we got the Memphis Grizzlies. They're 15 and 17 right now. That has them right below the Warriors at ninth in the Western Conference. Um, man, this team
Yeah.
shambles, bro. It's been a bad season for them. I guess their saving grace has been Triple J, what he's been able to do, but and they're Cedric Coward. Cedric Coward's looking good. They're rookies. I feel like that's always been something with them. But besides that, bro, Ja has not. I think he's having one of these worst seasons of his career from shooting from the field and just statistic wise as well. Obviously, he's been in and out the lineup, but even when he is playing, I haven't really seen him make that much of a difference for them. And I think with Zach Edey being injured, we've seen them not really have their full roster all year. They've been able to get wins throughout the season, but is this a roster that I think can compete for a play-in? And even if they do, can they potentially give that number 1, 2 seed a run for their money? And I don't think so. Honestly, I don't think they're at that level. It sucks because of where they were at a couple years ago, and they're fine in the West, right? We always bring that up, but making that Desmond Bain trade, obviously, you got a lot of assets for that, so that's probably going to be really good for you these upcoming seasons, and you could kind of build off of that. But obviously, we're kind of seeing the mark that he had on this roster. You know what I mean? Obviously, he hasn't changed the Magic's trajectory, I guess per se, but just kind of what he provided for the Grizzlies. I think it was something they're still trying to figure out. We Jalen Wells hasn't been consistent. Like I said, Cedric Coward has been probably one of their best players this whole season. But
Cam
GG
Spencer, yeah, dude.
Jackson, Cam Spencer, right? So it's like you're getting a lot of production from these guys that expectations weren't that high for them. So you're in a decent spot, I guess. Like you're not really competing. You have Triple J and Jaw. What are you gonna do with Jaw? You know what I mean? Like we talked about that whole situation earlier in the year. I feel like it kind of got swept under the rug and haven't really said anything about it. But what's that gonna look like in the foreseeable future? But we'll see, man. Like Memphis is just they have the injury bug right now. I feel like that's a lot of teams in this category. But they have always good developmental staff. They draft well. I think they're gonna be decent. I mean, they're never gonna be bottom of the barrel type of team, but they haven't been the best team either. So they're kind of in that purgatory as well. Just a little, I would say, better than the Kings in that aspect, to where they can get a game to the Thunder last year, right? But it's not saying much, but they are able to draft well. So I think that is kind of their trade off. So we'll see. Middle of the pack as well. A little below 500, and I think it kind of goes to show with just the injuries that they've had, and their star players haven't been able to play consistently and contribute to winning basketball. So I think it kind of goes to show the type of season that they're having. But you know, it is what it is for
Yeah,
the
dude.
Grizzlies.
Yeah, like I think you did a great job of explaining that. And if you talk to Tomas Islo, I think he'd tell you the same thing. Like we're just an average team.
Hmm.
And I think Edie being in and out of the lineup is what hurts them. When he's in the lineup,
They look good.
they're clearly, a top 8 team in the West, right? But
Hmm.
I think right now it's just fluctuating because of their injuries, and you did a good job of highlighting that. And wanted to give props to Coward and Cam Spencer, like you brought them up. And the Grizzlies draft extremely well. Jalen Wells has played great too over the last 10 games. Like a lot of hope for them, man. And I think I could see why trading Desmond Bain was a viable option. I just, yeah, dude. I think we have them perfectly rated in the C tier. So
Yeah.
I think Memphis, for as much hype and talk and whatever, yada, 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 over the last 5 years, I think a lot of that's cooled down. And this is where they currently are right now,
Hmm.
playing 500 basketball.
Hmm. Yes, sir. Going into this next team, man, kind of. in the same boat a little bit. I feel like Portland Trailblazers is their next team. They're 13-19 right now. That has them 10th right now in the West, right below the Grizzlies. Same type of position. Feel like they've gotten that big win against the Thunder. Feel like that was something that kind of showed me that this team is a decent roster. That's why I check whenever I do see a Trailblazers game and I see that they're losing to the Jazz or the Wizards. It's like, what's going
Right.
on? It's the inconsistency with how well they play. I think, I brought it up a little bit earlier. They just don't really have someone that can initiate the offense right now with Drew Holiday and Scoot being injured. You're kind of giving those responsibilities to Shaden Sharp and Denny, who are like forwards that can handle the ball, but isn't their main position. So that being said, I think what they've been able to do defensively has been able to have them in a lot of games this year. It's just their offense hasn't been the most efficient and the most fluid. It kind of gets stuck in mud a little bit, kind of like how the Magic's offense is. It's very ISO dependent and swing, swing, shoot, and if you're not making them, then the game is kind of gets out of reach, pretty quickly. So that's been my thing with them. Just been good basketball at times, but when the offense isn't going, it's really bad because they don't have a main guy besides Denny to consistently be able to get you, 25, whatever it is a game, but
Yeah.
when he's not doing that, the team it's in shambles at certain points of the game. So that's kind of why we got to put him here because they're not terrible, but they're also not a really good team. You know what I mean? They have their moments. So
They have to put it all together. I think they have the pieces to do it. They're at times they look connected. They beat the Thunder this year. Shaden Sharp's been awesome. But yeah, Denny Obvious kind of what makes them go and just having the pieces around him. I know when Dame comes back, it'll be interesting to see what that is like. But as of right now, man, I think it's a perfect spot for them being in the C tier. And yeah, I think Portland has the opportunity to make the play in this year. And we couldn't say that the year before.
mhm.
And yeah, man, can they do it? We'll see. This is the before the All Star break one, so we'll see.
We'll see. We'll see. Going into another team in this tier, we have the Chicago Bulls. They're 15-16, which has them ninth right now in the Eastern Conference. So a lot of these teams gonna be a little under 500, a little above 500. They're like middle of the pack type of teams, and I think that's perfectly explains how the Bulls have been. Beginning of the season, they were looking like one of the best offensive teams in the league, and being able to get up and out the court. Josh Giddey is doing his thing, getting triple doubles. People questioning about the Alex Caruso, Josh Giddey trade, who won that trade, this and that. I think we kind of seen what he can be. I'm not saying that he's capped out at his you know, ability or skill set, but if they're not able to really position themselves to get, a guy in this draft, I think it's going to be hard for them because I feel like the Bulls have not really been able to sign a lot of people in free agencies, and that's the thing with them right now. They're having to rely so much on a trade like the Josh Giddey trade that, kind of fell into their lap, if we're being honest. But all their other stuff has been through the draft that are 11th, 12th pick that, like, I was saying earlier with the Kings, for instance, like, Bulls are always going to be in the play in. I think we've kind of become accustomed to
Yeah,
them being that. They're going to be a 10-9 seed competing for that, either the 8th seed or the 10th seed. So it's kind of like they're in a weird spot. So I think it just kind of sums up the brand of basketball, the team that they have been to put them in this tier. They've had shown us moments where they look really good, and then they've kind of fallen off a cliff over the last really month. So it's kind of hard to really put them any higher. You know what I mean? Josh Giddey's look good, but Noah Nsenge being out for the whole season. Matas is kind of having a quiet year, I would say. I feel like I don't really see a lot from him, but I feel like he's doing pretty good for the most part. It's just the opportunities. Billy Donovan. I know he was a coach for the Thunder as well. He doesn't really play a lot of young guys, so it's kind of that's what your direction you're trying to go into. So why are you not playing Matas as much? So I think that's my main question for them. But besides that, little under 500 basketball. start off the season super hot, cool down a little bit. I think this is the team that the Bulls are. They're probably going to be able to compete like they are always for that play in spot. And as a fan of that, I don't know if you enjoy that or not. It's like, man, can we just be bad enough to get a good pick, or if we're
Pick
gonna be
a top
good,
five
let's
pick,
try to get,
yeah,
you know what I mean? So, I'd hate to be in that circumstances
sure.
as a fan, but that's where they're at, and that's where they have been for really the past 5 years. So, don't know if that's a good or bad thing for y'all, but middle of the pack type of team, 500
Yeah,
basketball.
I wouldn't be surprised if they finished ninth. And I think Josh Giddey's had a great year. Kobe White, when available, has been awesome. And Nikola Vucevic, man, I mean,
Hmm.
he's really been what's kept them afloat in the front court at least. And yeah, the Bulls over the last 5 seasons, man, just seem like their middle name is the plan. And we got to put them in the C tier for that reason, just middle of the pack basketball. And like CJ said 5 minutes ago, but a lot of these teams are 500 or below,
Hmm.
just a little bit. I think that speaks to just the culmination of the current NBA season, where you can see where tiers are ranked just based off of their record. And kind of, the old saying goes, you are what your record is. And I think the Bulls are that. They can get hot or cold real quick. And
Hmm.
they were hot at the beginning of the year. And like you said, they've chilled off a little bit, but I like that spot, man. For them being ninth in the East, I think we gotta. They're not in the F tier, but they're not in the B tier.
Exactly. And same with these last two teams, but this team specifically as well. The definition of mid 500 basketball, the Atlanta Hawks, they're 15 and 18 right now. Obviously, Trey Young coming back, I feel like that's the main thing. They did so well with him out, but there were signs of the defense looking lackluster even when Trey Young wasn't in the lineup as well. I think it China just built up to this, but what they looked like when Jalen Johnson was the main initiator, getting triple doubles, I think, a Mecca, Aneko Konwu, sorry. What he's been able to be. Sorry, I was thinking of fucking fantasy football and shit. What he's been able to be for them this year, stretching the floor, being a reliable 3-point shooter. Nikhil Alexander Walker, what I'm saying, like, I think he's been a great pickup for them, and what he's been able to provide offensively, I feel like it's a huge leap from, being someone in the Timberwolves that was, a good offense player, but he's averaging like 18, 16 now. I think I definitely don't know how much exactly, but I'm assuming he probably averaged like 11 or 12 last year. So a decent point boost, but just what they've been able to do, man, I think it's literally I'm gonna keep saying it as well. It's the definition of like mid basketball. Like they've shown us moments where they're incredible offensively, even defensively. Dyson Daniels and what they've been able to provide or show us on the defensive side of the ball translates to their offense. That's how they can be so effective at moments. But I feel like whenever they can't turn a team over, aren't able to get a lot of the easy shots in the fast break, that's kind of where they lack. They don't have, with Trey Young being out, obviously they have some shot creation from Jalen Johnson and Nikhil Alexander Walker, but as a roster, I had high hopes for them. You know what I mean? This was one of those teams that I was expecting a huge leap from being, top four team in the Eastern Conference, and they're nowhere near that right now, and it kind of goes to show. I think that's why we got to put them in this tier. Um, didn't expect Trey Young to get injured and them still do good, so that's a plus for them. So it's kind of why they're not in the F tier and not the B tier, just because they've been able to stay afloat and they've shown glimpses. If you're a Hawks fan, that maybe we don't need Trey Young on this roster to be good. You know what I mean? Obviously, it was only a small sample size, but if it's something that you can build on, well, we'll see, but,
Yeah,
that's why
I
they
like
gotta
I
be right
like
there.
I like it because I think Trey Young being out and them winning games kind of proved to me, like, okay, like this team, they're pretty good, but the defensive issues when he's in the lineup are a big thing.
Mhm,
And Porzingis being in and out of the lineups hurt them a lot this season. I think they're right in the mix, play in, 7 seed playoff, still playing. But like, if they can go on a run, bro, I feel like the Hawks could make the B tier. I think they're one of these teams that's also closer to the B tier, like the Sixers, Hawks. Those
mhm.
two teams are pretty close to the B tier in my opinion. Um, yeah, can they move up? We'll see. I think Quinn Snyder has a tough task because the defensive issues when Trey's on the court, it's just too much. It's too much now in the NBA landscape where everybody's shooting threes, everybody can score 30 in 10 minutes.
Hmm.
It's like it's hard to make Trey Young your point of attack defender. You know what I'm saying? But
Right.
yeah, I have to agree. I think so far we've nailed it on the head. So
Oh
I'm
yeah.
sticking with Atlanta here.
Yeah. Yeah, and to wrap up, the last C tier team, we got the Utah Jazz, man. And honestly, this is one of those teams that going into the season, I thought this was probably going to be the worst team in the West. So
Me too.
they definitely have blown my expectations out of the water. Seeing them compete, they had back to back games again. I think against the Thunder and the Lakers. So, I kind of was tapped into Jazz games and just seeing what they've been able to do offensively, bro. Just able to get a lot of shots up. Keontae George is having a breakout season. Larry Markkinen is, quietly averaging 30 points for the Jazz. You know what I mean? I feel like it's been something that we kind of are accustomed to at this point. But with them having their offense clicking on all cylinders, I would say it's been able to keep them in these games. And, their games even without their main defensive guy, their big guy holding down the paint, Walker Kessler being out, what they've been able to do in his absence still. And Ace Bailey taking, he hasn't taken a huge leap, but he's shown us that he can score in the NBA, and I think that's his main thing, right? Being able to get to his spots, be able to make these difficult, turnaround jumpers and shot making ability. I think that's what I was wanting to see from him, and feel like I've seen a decent amount. So Jazz have definitely been one of the more surprising teams for me this year. I didn't expect them to be in the playoffs, but just kind of where I had them at before the season started and where they are at. I think they projected for what, like 16 wins, and I said they were going to go under. Now they're at 12 wins, so they're going to blow that out of the water. So made me look stupid, but it's a part of it. I didn't think they were going to be able to figure it out, and just offensively didn't think Keontae George was really going to take this huge leap he has. But shout out to him and shout out to Lowry Markin, and that's really their roster. And obviously it can keep them in some games. May not be able to win a lot, but it's gonna be hard for you to be able to defend those two guys. So shout out to the Jazz, bro.
Yeah, dude, and no Kessler as well for the entire year. I think when he comes back next year, they'll be even better in the paint defensively.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing for me is their defensive questions. That's why you got to put them in the C tier. I think
100%.
they don't want to be too good because the Thunder again got the pick, so you don't want to be too good. I think it's top 8 protected, so you want to
Mm-hmm.
try to suck. But if it falls out top 9 or below, it's the Thunder's pick. So the Jazz do have to be careful in that regard. That'll wrap up the C tier though. Thank you guys for sticking around. That was like the majority of the teams, but now it's just 4s. So it'll be pretty easy. But moving on to the B tier, we got the Timberwolves, man. They're sitting at 20 and 12. The reason I put them in this tier is 2 back-to-back Western Conference Finals appearances, starting to find their footing defensively. I think Ant-Man had that injury for a week or two, but ended up coming back, and I think he had an infection in his pinky or something crazy, a pinky toe or something crazy. But yeah, they look good. So far over the last 5, they look like a team that's defensively connected. I think Rudy Gobert is still a really underrated defender and
Mm-hmm.
probably doesn't get the credit that he deserves. But I think Anthony Edwards leap and Julius Randle, man. I mean, it's really him. I think Anthony Edwards we knew was an MVP candidate, but for Julius Randle to be that 21, 5, and 7 type of guy, getting 5, 6 assists every night,
Mm-hmm.
I think it speaks to his growth as a player and the belief and trust that Chris Finch has in his players. And yeah, Bones Highland, they've had a couple moments from guys, Dante DiVincenzo, and I think 20 wins on the year, man, through
Mm-hmm.
30 something games. I think it speaks to where they are at as a team and as a cohesive whole. So I would not be shocked to see them making noise in the playoffs. Do I think they get back to a Western Conference Finals? Absolutely not. However, they are competing and they're scrappy. They look good on the defensive end. I think they got to clean up some offense, mainly their bench, right? Rob Dillingham,
Mm-hmm.
trying to figure out that Bones Highland situation. Jaden McDaniels as well. I think they have a lot of X factors that can hurt you a lot. So
Mm-hmm.
Timberwolves sitting comfy in the B tier, man. Like I said, 20 wins. I think this is the first team that we've spoken about that has 20 wins. So
Mhm.
got to give credit where credit is due. Shout out Minnesota.
Yeah, bro. Shout out to Minnesota, bro. And I think, you said it, that the reason why I think they're, they've been to back Western Conference finals, so we know they're a good team. But the leap that Julius Randle has taken this year is the main reason why I, put them like pretty, they're in that they can be A or like barely miss A, but be like a solidified B team. You know what I mean? Because of that reason. And with Rudy Gobert on the court, we talk about him not being offensive guy, can't catch a ball, but what he provides for them defensively, I think it goes to show. Like they're consistently one of the best defensive teams in the league. And when you have Ant on the roster, I think he's such a game changing guy. I mean, he hit a big three against us to take the league and ended up hitting that three to go to overtime against the Nuggets. So he doesn't shy away from those moments, and I think he, like you said, he's an MVP type player. But when you have Julius Randle playing at a potential All Star level, it's hard to really bet against that. I think that's a leap that Julius Randle has shut me up about because I said he was a black hole at a certain point in his offense or his career, but he shut me up. He's been able to prove to me that they can coexist and be one of the the best teams in the West. So like you said, 20 wins, and for a Minnesota team that has a lot of holes, but they've been able to figure it out. Jaden McDaniels has been taking a huge leap as well. Just whenever Ant's out or they don't really have a true guard as well, just seeing what he can do, create his own, get to his spots, and really just like kind of score at will at certain points. You know what I mean? I feel like he just goes into that certain type of mode, certain points of the game where it's like, where was this at in the first quarter, or like from the
Yeah.
tip off. So, but he has those. They have, like you said, they have a lot of extra Nasri, DiVincenzo. They have these guys that can impact a game at any certain time just by them playing good defense, hitting threes. So I think that goes a long way for them, and I think they're definitely a solidified B tier team for me as well.
There you go. Yeah, no, I'm rocking with that. I think this next squad is similar, but the Raptors, man, we got the Raptors. They're 19 and 14 on the year. They're fourth in the East. Scotty Barnes just had a 25 point, 20 rebound triple double. They're in the second apron, but they got quickly Barrett, Ingram, Barnes. I mean, that core has played extremely well, top 12 or 13 in net rating this season. They've blown my expectations out of the water simply because I didn't think the continuity would happen as fast.
True.
But they've proven that, BI can fit in on any team. I think
Mhm.
his game translates really well on any team that you put him on. I think you can put Brandon Ingram on the Lakers. He would get 20 points. You can put him on the Pistons. He would get 20 points. Like, he's just a very versatile player. So I
Mhm.
didn't really think about that when they made that signing, but it seems to be a great one for them. Colin Murray Boyles is hurt. I've expected more from their rookies, but seeing Jamal Shed has been awesome. You know, I think the Raptors are in an interesting spot because they have a young core. They're probably not playing for a draft pick. You could say that this is their all in version of being all in.
Yeah.
And Toronto doesn't get a ton of superstar players. The last player that went through there was Kawhi, and he didn't even really want to be there.
Mhm.
So I think this Toronto team is interesting because I think this is the best that Toronto has been since that season.
Mhm.
And so I want to give them some credit because I think they're approaching that 20 win mark and top 13 in net rating, like I said. Um, BI looks good, bro. That core looks good, and I think their bench depth is something they got to work on. OJ Abaji, Grady Dick, Shed, all
Mhm.
those guys. I think that's one thing they have to work on, but they're pretty top heavy, but they're winning games, so good for the Raptors.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I was about to say just the what that big three, big four, if you want to call it that, what they've been able to do has been incredible. We talked about them when they went on their win streak earlier this season. It was a 7, 8 game win streak, whatever it was. I feel like that's a huge reason why they still have the fourth in the East right now. But just what they've been able to do, I think a lot of their players are similar, right? RJ Barrett, Scotty Barnes, BI, pretty similar for the most part, right? Mid range, can score. But I think what it it allows Scotty to be kind of what his true like position is. You know what I mean? Not really being the like main offensive weapon, right? Kind of can be a Swiss Army knife and kind of plug in. So I think this is like I'm gonna be honest, probably one of the best things to happen for him in his career. You know what I mean? Just kind of being able to be like the Cooper Flag essentially, right? Like the
Yeah.
that type of player that can, do a little bit of everything, play defense, initiate offense, but you're kind of in there to roam, be the roamer to defend any player that, you need a double off of, or, this guy's cooking gum over here. And like you said, he just got a triple double as well. So kind of rebound, assist, play good defense. I think it's kind of
Do it
opened
all.
up his
Yeah.
game so much. And then, like you said, BI is that type of player where, I mean, he's proven it to us. He could go to any roster and average 20 points regardless of their situation. So he's been consistent. Scotty Barnes is kind of going into a role that I feel like is more suited for his playing style. And then you get IQ, and then, RJ Barrett kind of, taking a leaps in their own, just being more efficient throughout the season. I think that's something with the roster that we didn't expect them to be like this. That's why, they kind of, like you were saying, blew our expectations out of the water, because we didn't think that continuity would just, happen so quickly. And, shout out to them being the fourth seed in the East. For like, gets overlooked because of the situation, the state of the Eastern Conference. But like you said, I think this is a perfect situation for them to go all in and, show what they're made of, because this is, probably the best year that they've had, like you said, since winning the championship. So they gotta
Man.
capitalize on moments like this, because they don't get a lot of
Yeah.
these type of players, walking in Toronto. So shout out to Toronto, man.
Exactly. Yeah, shout out to Toronto. There you go. Next squad we got on our list, bros. The Magic. They're fifth seed right now. They're 18 and 14. They're B tier because they, again, what they did in the playoffs last year, they kind of showed us they're the real deal. I think Paolo and Franz, that duo, is very capable. However, they've really struggled over the last 5 games. I think they're probably we're probably the weakest team out of the four in this B tier group as of right now. But ultimately, man, sitting fifth in the East, I think they've played extremely well at times. We've seen flashes of the team that they can be in. Desmond Bain hitting those game winners, hitting 8 threes. Jalen Suggs, having that big first half in the NBA Cup game. I think he had 21 points in that first half. But guys showing flashes of growth. Anthony Black as well. But I think they have a lot of stuff brewing that's good for them. As of right now, I think the Magic are stuck between a rock and a hard place on what they need to do on offense, and I think that's hurt them a lot just over the course of the last few seasons. Their offensive inefficiency has been something that's really hurt them, and I think they have to clean that up before we take them seriously as real contenders. But
Hmm.
they're going to sit pretty in the B tier because even the teams around and in further tiers they've beat.
Hmm.
They've proven us that even the Celtics, right? They've given them a run for their money in the playoffs. Teams like the Lakers, the Rockets, right?
Hmm.
Um, I think Orlando, I don't know if they're going to win the championship this year. And that's the thing, right? Is like with the Pacers not being healthy, the Celtics not being healthy, the East is wide open. I think you were probably expecting them to be more of a slash S tier type team
Yeah.
this season, but that's also why we got to put them in the B tier, just expectation wise. I think they've come up a little bit short on that end. So
Yeah.
props to Orlando. Hopefully they can get it turned around, but I think they're like I said, they're stuck between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah, it's been injuries, bro. You know what I mean? If it's not Paolo or Franz, it's Jalen Suggs or Anthony Black. It's someone. So it's been tough for them to see their team fully healthy, because I mean we haven't seen it. But when it is clicking, we've seen moments of Desmond Bain hitting game winners, him dropping 25, 30, whatever it may be. Paolo kind of has been pretty inefficient, I'd say, this season. It's kind of seeing him without Franz and vice versa. I mean, I said it before, bro. We're gonna be getting those like JT and JB, like the Jays. You know what I'm saying? Like they're gonna have them going against each other all the time, so it's gonna suck. And I feel that's a storyline brewing. You know what I mean? But seeing what each really what Franz has been able to do. I feel like that has been my most X factor thing for them because Paolo has been decent, but it just looks like the team looks more fluid and it looks like it's better offensively when Franz is on the court. But obviously he's been injured. I think he's out for another 2 weeks. So they've still been able to win games, and I think that obviously has to do with Paolo. But it's been just seeing them kind of going away from the defense. It sucks because I feel like that's their identity. That's what kept them in a lot of the playoff games that they've been in lately. But I think it's a part of getting new guys on the roster. Desmond Bain, hasn't been the greatest, but he has his moments. So B tier for sure, like you're saying as well. I see definitely on the lower end of the B tier, but B tier nonetheless. Not C, not A, perfect where they're at. I feel like I've seen moments for the Magic where they look really good.
It's the happy medium. Yeah, but this next team, man, the Phoenix Suns, probably the most surprising team we have so far, but they're in the B tier this year, man. 19 and 13 so far through 30 something games. And for me, the reason they're here is, bro, they've exceeded expectations coming out of the death of the second apron and obviously getting rid of Durant, getting rid of Beal, reconstructing their roster. They've overperformed, man. Like I mentioned earlier in the pod, but that random executive said that, we thought Phoenix was going to be an easy win. That's not the
Mhm.
case. You go to Phoenix, it's going to be difficult. They're scrappy. They have a great roster. Royce O'Neal, Gillespie, Booker, Brooks, Mark Williams, Dunn, like, do I need to go on? They just
Right.
come at you, Jordan Goodwin, like they just come at you with bodies, and it's kind of a by committee thing, and by committee's almost gotten them 20 wins this season, man. And I want to give them credit because I know CJ and I didn't think that they would be in this position, but they're
Mm-mm.
firmly in a seventh seed and looking to overtake the Timberwolves, to get in that firm playoff spot, which is kind of crazy to say, but they are clearly one of the better teams that we have in the league, or top half team that we have in the league. And so you got to give credit where credit is due, man. And I think Phoenix, out of any team that we've spoken about so far, has exceeded expectations by a lot.
Oh, 100%. I would say probably at this point the team that has exceeded the most, like we said, didn't really have expectations of them even competing for a play in, and now you're, a solidified playoffs team at this point of the
No
year.
Jalen Green either.
No Jalen
Like,
Green.
bro,
It's literally been D Book and Dylan Brooks and like we said, ragtag group of guys that just go out there, play hard basketball, and know their roles. So shout out to the Suns, bro. Did not expect this from them. Um, they've definitely turned their trajectory around. I feel like beginning of the season they were talking about what's the owner's name? Having a brain fart right now.
HBA.
Ishbia was saying that, oh well, people expected us to win last year and we didn't do good, so it's a reverse ideology, and I mean he was on to something, bro,
Hey,
because he maybe
lucky.
he's on to
Yeah.
something because we didn't expect them to win and now they are. So shout out to the Suns, bro.
Less is more, man. And similar thing. I mean, this next team, man, we got on the B tier list, last one, but the Heat. Miami is 17 and 15, man, playing the fastest basketball that they've played in the last decade. Top 15 in offensive rating, which hasn't been heard of in Miami for the last couple seasons. And I think, they're B tier because of they're the Heat, man. Anytime the Heat get in the playoffs, there's Heat magic in the air. And I think we gotta be, you know, this team you could put in the C tier if you want. There are 3-7 over the last 10, but I think for me it's the offensive revelation that Eric Spoelstra has introduced to this team. Playing faster, guys like Clell Ware, Norman Powell, Hawkes, Hero. Now that he's back, has played great. Adebayo's played great, and I think they can give you a run for their money if they're able to be a 7 or 6 seed. You're looking at a team that when playing a 1 or 2 seed, like they will still compete. I know they got swept last year, but they'll still make sure that they can at least fight for the win. They may not get it, but the Miami Heat are never a team to lose by 30. So I think at this point in the season, I put them here because of their pace and the way that they play, how fast they play, anything can happen. And they've proven to me that over the last few seasons, like they're going to be in the play-in or a playoff spot. So I
Hmm.
gotta, I gotta, I gotta put them in the B tier, man, because I feel like Miami is, a team that we talk about a lot in terms of their culture and pedigree and all that stuff. And so I feel like we also gotta weigh that in there too.
100%, bro. And like you said, you brought up my main point as well. Is just the fact that they are playing at the fastest pace in the league, and it's something we've never seen before. So if they've been able to compete on a consistent basis for as long as we've been watching basketball at a consistent level, it's hard to really bet against a team that plays fast, that also competes, has the heat culture, right? They have like the brewings of like a potential upset wherever they end up
Right.
placing anytime they're in the playoffs. So, like you said, off of merit, off of what we've seen over since the play in became a thing, and that 9-10 seed could potentially make a playoff spot. They have been able to constantly be in the running for that, and making it, as a playing team, and then making it to the finals, something we'd never seen before. So we got to off of merit, bro, and then off of also just their playing style. They switched it up. They haven't stuck with what they know. They've have re-engineered their roster to kind of play at the pace of what the NBA game asks for nowadays. So shout out to Spoelstra, one of the greatest coach I've ever seen personally, and just what the Heat been able to do, man. It's incredible. But going into the A tier, man, we're kind of getting up to these elite teams now. So first team in the A tier, we got the best team in the Eastern Conference, man. We got the Detroit Pistons. They're 24-8. That has them number 1 right now. I think based off of what we just said about the Miami Heat, right? Or even the Phoenix Suns, overseeding our expectations. We thought that the Pistons were going to be good, but did we think they were going to be the best team in the league, or in the Eastern Conference? Sorry. Obviously, we gotta, you can't just be in the S tier off of your record alone. We gotta also think about the roster. Um, but how they've been playing, what they've been able to show us this whole season. Cade Cunningham emerging into another All NBA season. Jalen Duren, taking a huge, rise in production and being, competing to be an all-star player as well. It's incredible to see what they got going on, especially just how far they've come from 2 years ago, having the worst record in the league, going on that 28 game lose streak. Now you have 24 wins in a season, and you're not even at the All-Star break, so it's incredible to see. I think why we don't have them in that S tier spot is because of the experience.
Playoff.
They
Yeah.
obviously went to the playoffs last year, lost to the Knicks, who went to Eastern Conference Finals, but getting that experience, I feel like, is the main thing for them at this point. I feel like they have the brewings of being, you know, finishing top seed in the East, and then potentially, losing in the second round depending on the matchup. That's the type of vibe I kind of see for them. It happened.
Yeah.
It happened to the Thunder. When we went against the Mavs and we ended up losing, and the Mavs went to the finals. I think that's the type of vibe I get from the type of season they're having. Not taking that away from them. Obviously, they're the best team in the Eastern Conference at this moment, but I think the experience, the young guys that still need to get into those moments of the lights being bright, and you're down 2 guys already, those type of clutch moments. That's I think that's why we have them in the A tier and not top of the cream of the crop, what I mean, S tier. But nonetheless have been easily the probably another one of the teams to oversee our expectations and blow us out of the water, per se, like we've been saying. But 24-8, man, just incredible. Cade Cunningham emerging into the spotlight once again.
Yeah, bro. And yeah, I think you explained it pretty well for me, bro. I couldn't put him in the S tier until I see more, just a little bit. And I mean, from a playoff and like, yeah, like we got a team in the S tier that's new and up and coming, but there's a reason. There's a
Right.
reason for that. But Detroit is pretty much the Eastern Conference equivalent now that I think about it. But just Cade Cunningham
Facts.
and young guys like. Asar Thompson getting some love here. I think they've built an extremely high level franchise, and I'm excited to see where they can take it. I don't know if they'll go to the championship this year,
Mhm.
but I mean, we got to give. They're the first team. They're near S tier,
Right,
so they're the
right
first
there.
team in the A tier.
Mhm.
Yeah, so
I agree.
I'm with you on that.
Yes, sir. Going into our next team in the A tier, a second team is a team on the Western Conference. We got the Houston Rockets, man. They're currently 19 and 10. 6.5 games behind the Thunder, but have been the one of the best offense and defensive team all year long. I think that kind of speaks for itself. Just seeing what this roster can be on a night in night out basis. Obviously, the addition of Kevin Durant is going how we expected it to. Fitting right in, being the offensive hub that we know he can be, and then you also are adding another year of Sengun. Progression and what he's turned into. A Men Thompson turning into, a lockdown defender that can, initiate offenses as well. Obviously, Fred VanVleet has been out, but this team expectations for sure were already, I wouldn't say conference finals are bust, but that's the kind of vibe that I got from them, and they've been able to hold up to those standards. I wouldn't say they're one of the best teams. I wouldn't say they're the best team in the West. And that's kind of where you to be in the S tier, you kind of have to separate yourself from everyone else, and not saying they haven't, but we've seen them lose in moments. We've seen, what can this roster in the playoffs look like. Obviously, expectations, KD, being the missing piece for them, so not questioning that. But I think that, with that being said, these teams in the S tier have kind of proven it to up to this point. And they're right there as well. You know what I mean? They're one of those teams that can definitely be game changing X
Yeah,
factors, but at this moment, we got to put them in the A tier, a little right below the S tier.
yeah, bro. And I think we got it's an experience thing as well. And losing Game 7 like that last year, I think it hurt some people for sure. I know it hurt Shengun and Amen. But adding Kevin Durant is going to change the landscape of that. And, who's not to say they can't be S tier? I think at the end of the season, maybe that the S and A tier will change a little bit.
Hmm.
But as of right now, I think they're firmly one of the top six best teams in the NBA. It's just the four teams that we have in the S tier are just a little
Little
bit
bit
better.
better, yeah.
Like, and so like that's also another thing. Like you can't put the Rockets there. I think more than the Pistons, honestly. But
Mhm.
um, yeah, man, I think they're the real deal. I don't want to play. I don't want the Lakers to play them in the playoffs. Like they're the real deal for
Yeah, I would
sure. We
say that.
you guys saw what happened on Christmas Day, man. It would be like 4 or 5 games of that.
Yep. No, yeah, it's one of those matchups too. It's kind of like, I mean, we'll get into it, another team that's further up in this list, but just kind of that matchup, like they match up well with a lot of players. They play defense and they have, one of the best offense. It's like a matchup nightmare for anybody. So going into our third team in the A tier though, having a really very surprising season. I would say a huge reason why they are high is because of the expectations we had for them, but just also what they've been able to do. It's the Boston Celtics, bro. They're 19 and 12 right now. That has them third right now in the Eastern Conference. And, obviously Tatum being out with his Achilles injury for, more probably majority of the season. Jalen Brown has been able to step in and be their go-to guy in a season where they were obviously needing that. They had a lot of, got out of the second apron luxury tax and were able to, maneuver their way and get to a spot where they're not as deep into the tax as much, but obviously leaves a lot of holes for you to fill out. And what he's been able to provide for them has been incredible. I think over his, it's one of those tweets where it has their last 15 games or whatever. He's been averaging like 30 points, like 32 points, whatever it is. It's been incredible. I think him being able to do that, I didn't expect him to be as efficient. I thought he could score that, but it's just been pretty much anywhere in the mid range has been able to knock down those jump shots and being able to get to the rim. And it's one of those, like, seeing him play, like, he doesn't look like he has like a bag, but he could get to his spots, and
Definitely
kind
has a
kind of
bag.
kind of reminds me like a Kawhi a little bit, like a little stiff.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like they have a bag, but it's like not like
super
tween. Yeah,
Kyrie,
yeah,
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 clean,
yeah. Like
clean cross,
he gets to
yeah.
his spots, he gets to where he's trying to go, and I mean it's just a good
Yeah,
shot more
bro.
likely. So shout out to Jalen Brown, bro. Obviously, being almost at 20 wins and you're down your best player and you have a lot of holes on your roster, but you've been still able to win games. And I think it, goes to show just what Missoula ball, what it's able to do, even when you don't have all your players healthy and the roster that we expect to be able to lead them to go to finals
Yep.
or conference finals, whatever it is, and you're still able to compete. So shout out to Boston, bro. I know you're a
Yeah.
Laker fan, but they've been looking really good this year. So we got to give them their props.
One of those teams, if they get to the playoffs, watch out. Not all the Eastern Conference teams want to play them, but I think it's testament to their offensive rating. Over the last 10 games, they've probably been a top two team in the NBA, probably 3 or 2, behind the Spurs, Thunder. But yeah, the Celtics are right there, bro. And Jason, and Jalen Brown has really stepped up in Jason Tatum's absence. Peyton Pritchard and Derek White have found their footing. They've had guys like Jordan Walsh and Myles Kata, a bunch of guys step up in X factor roles that they weren't necessarily expecting. And Joe Mazzulla is one of the. I mean, he's probably a Hall of Fame coach, guys. I'm not a Celtics fan, but I can respect greatness, and I think they do have a great coach and obviously a great front office GM with Brad Stevens. So I think the Celtics, for them to be almost one win off of 20, it speaks to how great of a team they are collectively as a whole, and even losing, Horford or Porzingis, filling it with Simons. They've done a good job of just filling in the gaps. So
Mhm.
clearly, Boston deserves to be in the A tier, and you don't want to play them in the playoffs if you're an Eastern Conference foe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
bro.
think no other way to, go into our next team without saying, this is your squad. This is the Celtics
LA Lakers,
rivals, you know what
man.
I'm saying? It's the Los Angeles Lakers. They're currently 20-10, hitting 20 wins, uh, you know, 30 games into the season. Think it kind of goes to show, we've seen the type of roster that y'all put out and what they can be on, certain nights. It's just defense, right? I feel like that's probably going to be your main thing. We can't put them in the S tier because of that, but off of offense alone, which you've been able to, which each AR, Luca and Braun, what they've been able to do pretty much all season long, that alone is going to put, like, no one's going to want to see y'all in the playoffs, you know what I mean, because of that. And it's a scary matchup, but I think the thing that holds y'all back is the defense. So it's kind of hard to say you are one of the elite teams, but you are one of the best teams in the league, if that makes sense. And I think that's kind of where how it's been for you for the really this whole year and really the past season since y'all or past calendar year since you've had Luca. It's been kind of being good offensively, but defense being inconsistent. You have moments throughout the season where you're locking up. Luka's playing great defense, but it's throughout the whole year. So can't put him in that S tier, but definitely one of the better teams. And I know I don't want to see y'all personally, and I know a lot of teams feel that way too. So putting the Lakers in that A tier, bro.
Yeah, dude. And I mean, we got 20 wins. I'd say we're trending towards the B tier low key, just because of our defense is so poor, and we're probably at the edge of the A tier. I just think you got to put us here because of the wins. And if we can get to the playoffs, we're a dangerous team. I think even if we're a 6 seed, and that's fine. So
Mhm.
I think it's a good spot. I would say though, as a Lakers fan, we're probably top of the B tier, trending towards that as of now, and it could be the case after the All-Star break. So that is one to watch out for. But we're finally at the S tier. Me and you will probably go back and forth. We'll go through this one. Um, I'll talk about your team, man, and then you can go into the Knicks. But the Thunder, I mean, they're first in the NBA. What are they? 27-5.
Mhm.
Yeah, outside the blemish with the Spurs and losing those 3 straight games, they've been pretty much perfect, and they're the best team in the NBA by far. Defensively and offensively, their net rating says so, and they're the defending champs, man. So the fact that they've been so consistent, I think it speaks to the front office, and it's a testament to how Sam Presti's built the team. Mark Daigneault's coached his ass off the last calendar year, and they continue to show why they're, in my opinion, the best team in the last decade. This is a no-brainer for us. Clearly, the Thunder have to be in the S tier just off of pedigree and what we've seen this season from them specifically. Um, I think the offense can be better, to
Yeah.
be honest. That's the one thing that has hurt them a little bit. But at times when Shea goes to the bench, and if there's not an AJ Mitchell or whoever J-Dub who's cooking, it looks like their offense is stuck in mud. So if
Hmm.
they can clean that up and continue to utilize Shea in his spots, I think the Thunder will be fine overall. But
Hmm.
to me, this is the current NBA favorite to win an NBA title and
Hmm.
repeat.
Yeah. No, yeah, bro. You said it. I mean, I have my worries on the offense side of the ball, them not being able to knock the 3-point shot consistently is going to hurt us. I mean, we saw it last year in the playoffs be able to do that. We've seen it in these games against the Spurs and you know Trailblazers, the losses that we've had, Timberwolves this year. It's been something I've been nagging on all year. The fact that we have been able to win is kind of like the saving grace, in situations where we don't shoot the ball well. But I don't want that to be fool's gold for us because I know come playoff time, teams are gonna be able to, play a zone and leave us wide open and it's gonna be moments. But like you said, besides that, I think we're the favorite as well to repeat, but just the question marks on the offensive side of the ball is my main worries, but I think we're such a good team on the other side of the ball, and we know how
Y'all
to
be all
cause havoc. It puts us
Y'all be
still.
fine.
We'll be fine.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's just one
yeah.
of those things. You know what I mean? But I agree. I agree, bro. I think we're team and beat. We have the best defense in the league. Offense is a questionable at certain moments, but that being said, it's still the Thunder. You know what I mean? I feel like a lot of people forget, but going into our next team, we got a team in the Eastern Conference, man. The New York Knicks. They're currently 22-9. They're actually below the Pistons, but I think just seeing how they've been this season, how their year ended off last year, losing in the conference finals. The Knicks are the team to beat in the Eastern Conference. Obviously, the
Oh,
Pistons have the better record. They're number one seed, but I think the Knicks, the experience, Jalen Brunson, bro, OG Anunoby, McCall Bridges, Cat, just what they've been able to build over these last couple seasons. I think this is the year for them to go all in. Obviously they have those type of players, best players in the league type of conversations to where there's not a lot of other teams that are going to be able to, stop them in the Eastern Conference. Like we said, Pistons are probably the more than likely, but just the experience and the Celtics, depending on where they rank. But if they can get to another Eastern Conference Finals and compete to go to the finals, bro, I think they are hands down the team to beat right now. Just with the way what they've been playing offensively and defensively. Mitchell Robinson is, incredible on the offensive boards. Tyler Kolek being able to be a spark plug for them off their bench. I think it's more than just their guys, but it's also just everyone being on the same page. They know their role. Jordan Clarkson is actually getting his footing to where he's able to be a flamethrower off the bench at certain times of the a game, and I think what they got building. It's why I had them being projected them going to the finals this year. So kind of lived up to my expectations. So the fact that we put them in this tier, I think it kind of speaks for itself. But it's been impressive too. Their net rating is a plus 6.8 over their last 10. So I think it kind of, just being able to see that it is incredible, defensively and offensively still with a new coach
yeah,
have been able to be
and
fluid.
they're NBA Cup champions, man.
Hey, there you go.
So they're the best team so far before the All Star break. So even better than the Thunder.
Hmm.
So it's I think it's more of a testament to how much the Knicks have grown, and they beat the Pistons last year. I don't think there's no reason why they couldn't do it again. I think Jalen Brunson's been an All NBA player as well, first team, no doubt. And so far, I mean, they are, like you said, they're the team to be in the East. So we got to give credit where credit is due. 22-9, man. Shout out the Knicks. But
Shout
this
out.
next team, man, I think for me they're on this list because of what they did to the Thunder. But that's the San Antonio Spurs. Over what was it? 144 minutes of basketball. I think they beat the Spurs by more, or they beat the Thunder by more than it's like 20 or 30 something points, which, the Thunder don't get beat by 10.
Mm-hmm.
For the Thunder to get beat by 10, like that means something went wrong somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And for last game, it was Caruso. I think Caruso was like 2 of 12 or something from three. The
Ridiculous.
Thunder, like, if you can get the Thunder to where you don't turn the ball over and you force them to take threes, a lot of threes, well, you get games like you got, 3 games in a row versus the Spurs. And I think from that point, it kind of proved to the league, like, okay, like the Spurs are probably going to be an A or B tier team if
Yeah.
if they didn't do what they did to the Thunder, but to do it on Christmas Day, NBA Cup, and again, I think they beat them at home, but still,
Mm-hmm.
I just think it's too hard to deny. And I'm not a Spurs fan. I'm a Lakers fan. There's a rivalry. I know you're not, clearly not a Spurs fan, but
Absolutely.
Wembanyama, Castle, Harper, like that core is one of the best cores in the NBA, if I'm being honest. And so I think just off that alone and Wemby's capability, if he's healthy and they have him on a minute restriction, you can't put it past the Spurs to be competing for an NBA championship.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, I agree, bro. It's what they were able to do against us obviously is what put them at this level, but I mean, we had high hopes for them heading into this year, so I don't want to act like I'm surprised, but I mean, just the leap that or just the continuity that the guards have been able to play all on the same roster. I think that's where because I thought it was going to be such a huge logjam, and it's ended up being the thing that they needed exactly. Having three guys that can attack the rim, create their own shots. It's been a lot of teams don't have that, so it's hard to guard them. And you have wings that can defend and shoot threes, and then you have Wemby that is roaming because Alex Caruso isn't making a goddamn 3-pointer to save his life. So it's like he's a zero, and your best defensive player isn't having to play defense again. You know what I mean? So just a lot of
Yeah,
things, bro, and they matched up with us very well. So off of respect and what they have been able to show us up to this point, yeah, they got to be the S tier. Sadly, I mean, it sucks to say it. Blew my expectations out of the water. Didn't expect to lose 3 straight games to them. So off of that alone, hats off to the
yeah,
Spurs. But it,
but
it
clearly,
sucks. It
yeah.
sucks. Trust me. But going into the last team, man, last team of the tier list, last team in the S tier. Um, the one and only, man. Denver Nuggets, 22-9 right now, has them third in the Western Conference, right behind the San Antonio Spurs. Um, I mean, I think this is the Nikola Jokic Nuggets at this point. You know what I mean? What he's been able to do for them, what he does for them on a day-to-day basis. I was talking to JG about it whenever we were watching the Christmas game. I'm like, man, he just makes it look so effortless, bro. Like he makes basketball look so easy, and it like is frustrating because he gets 30 points, 20 rebounds, 15 assists, and it's like he's not even breaking a sweat, bro. So the fact that you could do that, we know that you are probably going to put up a crazy stat line like that, and we're still not surprised at it. It blows my mind. So just seeing how what he's been able to do for really the past 5 years, bro. You know what I mean? Just incredible. Think it's we've seen what him and Jamal Murray can do in the playoffs. That's not the question. It's just if they could,
Yeah,
get past the Thunder.
the Thunder.
I think that's their main question. You know what I mean? And I think it's something I'm going to stress about, if it gets to that point in the Western Conference, playoffs or whatever matchup that is, it's gonna be crazy. But um just off of Nikola Jokic's performances alone, I think you got to put him in this tier just off of what he's able to do. And then Jamal Murray being his, you know, dynamic duo and, being able to score 30 points. He's been having an incredible year. Hopefully he gets an all-star, but just seeing that dynamic duo still being great and they keep getting better to this day, I think it goes unnoticed for a lot of players just because we're not surprised at the type of things that Jokic does, but it's unbelievable. I want people to want to reiterate that for a lot of people because I feel like a lot of people don't appreciate that. But off of that alone, bro, they
Yeah,
gotta be S tier.
no doubt. And he's I mean he's the number one in the MVP voting for a reason, and they've done this without Christian Braun and Aaron Gordon to boot. So when those guys come back, I'm sure they'll be much better. So the fact that they're S tier without those two speaks to Jokic's greatness and what he's able to do for your team. But yeah, like you said, the only obstacle is the Thunder, and what are they like? I mean, they have over 20 wins, so clearly they're one of the better teams in the league. It's like you can see the playoff picture starting to shape up and who's going to be where. And this was a super dope exercise. I think it's good though. It's good for our audience to get an opportunity to hear what we're thinking. And yeah, man, that was contender pretender. That's all 30 teams right there.
Oh yeah, yes sir, bro.
Great. Yeah, bro. But this one ran along. How you feeling, man?
Feeling good. Yeah, this is a little longer one. It's like a little
Oh,
under 3. It's like 2:43 right now.
yeah,
So
243 or
I
something.
think it was good. I was dope, being able to talk about all the teams again. I feel like that's always whenever we can do that, I feel like it's dope for our audiences and for whoever is a fan of, the Utah Jazz or the Orlando Magic or you get
Right.
to have your moment of like, hey, they're talking about my team. So we appreciate y'all, man, being sticking out with us through this whole pod and we'll see you next time, bro. Was there anything else you wanted to say before we head out?
Nah, I think we'll save it for Wednesday. We'll yeah, this is if we like you just said, man, thanks for sticking it out for 3 hours. Like if you're
Facts.
still here, right?
You're a real
We
one.
appreciate it. Yeah, you're a real one. Like my goodness. But yeah, man, I think just keep watching hoops. We got a lot of great games, and I'm about to go home. I'll go upstairs and watch some of them, man, on the recap. We'll see.
Yes, sir. Well, if y'all liked and enjoyed this episode of Three Man Weave, don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see y'all next time, man. Peace.
Peace.
Three man, three
Three
man,
man.
three man.